A serene valley beckons once more, with bountiful harvests, mysterious magics, and exotic locations, all ripe for exploration. If you haven't seen my first 100 Days of Stardew, check that out first, link in description. But otherwise, come join my misadventures as I free the town from corporate tyranny, track down new challenges lurking about, and make some dear NPC friends along the way. I played 200 Days of Stardew Valley blind. It was day 101 and I was back on the farm, relearning the unfamiliar territory. The day started with a letter from Emily, mentioning that she was glad that a bear had shown up while we were camping. I'm still convinced it was a paid actor. Clint sent us a letter asking for an iron bar, and I gathered the mushrooms, trying to figure out where I had stored everything, like mushrooms and iron bars, for example. I started taking care of the animals, cows and goats for milk to turn to cheese, and chickens and ducks for eggs to turn to mayo. And I found myself back in the routine like I'd never left, smelting gold, running out of coal, and of course, looking at the hearts of people in town, scheming to get more. I went to town after grabbing an iron bar and did a quick birthday check, noticing today was the wizard's special day. Then I went to Clint, nabbing the steel watering can and giving him the iron bar he requested. I took a look at the prices for new gold tools, but decided I wanted to save my gold for quality sprinkler crafting. Homebound for crafting shenanigans, I decided to check the TV for luck. I'd practically ignored this mechanic in the first 100 days, but this oracle would tell us about the day's luck forecast, which truly had an in-game impact on random chance happenings. Places like the lovely Skull Cavern, to which I went on day 101, were best went on days where the spirits were agreeable at minimum. I foraged some desert forage and dove into the cave, beginning with a not-so-lucky infested level. Lovely. I got a notification about the night market while in here, which I'd completely forgotten about. I decided instead to smack these slimes like a goober, netting a tiny amount of iridium ore in exchange for many cuts and bruises. As I mined, I began to deduce that reaching level 25 like this was impractical at best. I would clearly need the whole day, crafted staircases, and immaculate luck. Still, I had noted I was occasionally getting iridium ore from the slimes, so I kept going, smacking everyone I found with my new spicy stick. I found this weird secret note and realized I had forsaken the wizard's birthday along with the night market. Guess his day wasn't as magical as it could have been. I tried using a bomb on these powerful bugs, and nothing. Completely unfazed. I got a little more iridium and went home at the last minute, nearly forgetting to immediately sleep. In my dreams, I began to worry I had missed some important things at the night market. Day 102 started off with Lewis sending us a letter about the last event I'd yet to see. The Feast of the Winter Star. Winter Star, huh? I feel like that's a little on the nose. The letter described a typical Secret Santa kind of situation where everyone had one specific person to get a gift for. And for us, that was Demetrius. Trying not to think too much about what he'd said to me about his daughter, I considered what I knew he liked. I started smelting our first iridium ore, already coveting the result. Living off the land made an obvious statement this morning, but I began to reconsider it a bit later. The man with a plan had said we should give people their favorite gift on their birthday, which seemed obvious, but favorite gift? I'd only ever heard of liked and loved gifts. Perhaps there was yet a mechanic to discover here. I queued up more jelly, eggs, and cheese before heading to Pierre's to sell what I had made. I gave this amethyst to Abigail while there, reaching 7 hearts with her, then went to Clint's to order the gold trash can after all. Robin told us this was how much the deluxe barn would cost, so I bought a wood chipper because having wood seemed good. I also found this crystal fruit on the way home, which was a gift I knew Demetrius would at least like. Arriving home, I sold some things and tested out this wood chipper, queuing a piece of hardwood to supposedly become some amount of regular wood. Stone would be needed for that barn too, so I went to the cavern hoping to get plenty of stone and hopefully other goodies. While there, I discovered this glorious hole. This big shaft. This thing. I jumped in that thing to find out it would take me down 6 levels. So apparently holes were just better ladders. Noted. Suddenly, on a good cavern run, I continued to delve, and smacked this thing hard enough that it dropped a rabbit's foot. I'm pretty sure this thing isn't a rabbit, but I had a feeling it would make me luckier, so I wasn't complaining. Another one of its ilk dropped this spicy eel. Confused, but hungry, I ate the random gourmet that fell from its corpse and delved on, speedier and even luckier than before. I also tried to equip the rabbit's foot, hoping to get a luck-based boon, but came up empty. I also came up empty when mining, finding this empty hole, and jumping in, falling another 4 levels, reaching level 14. I got lucky with close exposed ladder spawns back to back and caught a glimpse of a new creature in the rush. Gloriously, I encountered another hole, falling 8 levels and arriving on level 25. I had no time to celebrate, however, as before me stood this beast. After running around its scorching morning breath a few times, I dispatched it, receiving a dinosaur egg.
A dinosaur egg? Ah, it's an artifact. I was hoping I could hatch that.
I also found this secret note, which I think is a picture of young Marnie and Jazz. I looked finally for the quest to complete for reaching level 25 in the Skull Cavern, but it had simply disappeared. I decided then that some other action, like a cutscene, would probably occur instead. I also decided to spelunk a little further, nabbing gold, gems, stone, and found this thing. I assumed this was our first conventional iridium ore node, and went to mine it, only to find, nay, alas, it was this nasty crab instead. Slaying it rewarded iridium, and I went just a bit further before heading home with super awesome spicy eel speed. That night by starlight, we earned level 9 mining, learning the crystallarium recipe, and earned this much money. No cutscene occurred, but that morning, a letter in the mail answered the quest question. 10,000 G for that one, a pretty penny. That cash would help with a deluxe barn, but we needed more, as well as more wood to order it. Before getting on that, I collected our first ever iridium bar. I used all the coal from the cavern trip to smelt gold before heading to Gunther's to donate this dino egg, earning us absolutely nothing. I went to Pierre's to sell extra gems, but he doesn't buy those, so I gave his daughter one instead. She reached 8 hearts on the spot, and it was time to become a terrible person. I hadn't yet learned the truth that I did not need to date everyone to 100% the game, so yeah. We have 2 girlfriends now. And hey, if you're still here, you're in this with me now. You're now a part of this Stardew pain train. At least Abigail said the exact same thing Emily did here, which made me feel a little bit less awful in the moment. I went to sell the gems to Clint instead, but he was working on the trash can still. I ended up keeping the rabbit's foot because I really thought it would help with luck. I also checked our new crystallarium recipe, hoping to craft more, but it was remarkably expensive. So I swapped out the resource in our existing one to diamonds for extra money. I sold the remaining gems the normie way, except the amethyst because my girlfriends love those. I harvested the farm, sold all the crops, and made new quality sprinklers with all the gold. I began replacing the inferior sprinklers with these and became very aware of a new strange farm sound. Wood chipper makes some weird noises. I sold the old sprinklers I didn't need and tended the animals. I snagged this iridium cow milk amidst the tending of the animals and decided to keep it, adding it to my super special stash. I was sure fresh milk would be just fine instead of wooden box outdoors for weeks to come. I collected and smelted more bars and went to the secret woods to snag more hardwood. The comments had mentioned the elusive wood skip fish could be caught here in this lake, so I settled in for the long fishing session to I yammered on about how weird I felt about having 2 girlfriends as I turned in the fish to the specialty fish bundle, before heading off to sleep. We effectively became high rollers that night, reeling in 14,000 Gs. Today, I uncovered a horrible truth. But before that, I got a letter from Abigail, saying I should come to her room after 8 p.m. The guilt was really settling in at this point. I also learned via some comment hints that after being upgraded, the hoe could be extra effective if I held down the mouse button longer. Efficient! I decided therein I wanted to upgrade the hoe further, along with the barn. Birthday check, it's Evelyn's birthday today, and Caroline wants some algae for some reason. I grabbed this crocus for Evelyn on the way to Clint's, grabbing the gold trash can, and ordering the gold hoe. Then I took her the winter flower, hearing a small story about our grandfather in the past. But I'd left the animals behind, so I went to gather eggs, feathers, and milk. I also harvested the farm, and decided not to replant, hoping to focus on upgrading it this season. I tossed some wood in the wood chipper, then went to get more, leaving soon after to try the weird secret note with arrows I'd found a few days prior. After a little floundering, I decided to try the front door of the pictured house as a start point, and walk as far in the given directions as possible before being obstructed, then continuing in order. This brought me all the way to here, behind the mayor's house, where I found this thing. I stumbled into the saloon to show everyone where their tax money had been going, and found myself watching a cutscene about Gus. He'd made a giant omelet out of the 2 dozen eggs we'd brought him, and gave us credit to the folks partaking for our high-quality eggs. Feeling a little special, I went to Emily to suddenly feel the weight of our guilt all over again. But I did notice that a 10 out of 10 social standing resulted in this purple star. I'd come to the saloon, however, to find some answers. Remember that horrible truth I mentioned? I wanted to see about these 2 games within a game, and I assumed they would be nothing more than novel, simple games. Oh boy, was I wrong. This was a good old shoot 'em up, and I was apparently terrible at shoot 'em ups. It had nifty power-ups to save you from tricky situations, but I was still dying a lot. I eventually made it to this boss, promptly lost, and had to start all the way over, returning and learning how to deal with the barrage of bullets headed my way. After vanquishing this new foe, I was taken to a new territory, where I once again promptly lost, and was returned to the beginning. Crushed, I decided to try the other game, which turned out to be even more tragically difficult than the former. This was a jump and hold timing game. Speed was set and constant, and my only job was to press and hold spacebar perfectly, which I did not do. Despite this goobering I was doing with this cart, I managed to make it through the first level once, only to be introduced to a new mechanic and immediately fail, being sent all the way back to the beginning. Needless to say, that day ended then and there, walking home in a gamer-fueled stupor. I awoke from my utter defeat to find a letter from Robin asking for 10 hardwood. She constantly asks me for the resources to build my stuff, and then asks for more for free? Okay, Robin, okay. So I went to give her what she asked for some reason, but her door wasn't open. So I gave Linus soup to pass the time. Then I gave her the wood and mentioned I wanted to build a deluxe barn, but I was 420 wood short. Guess who didn't give me any free wood? After purchasing all 420 remaining wood from her on the spot, I ordered the deluxe barn and left in a huff. I decided to blow off some steam in the mines, gathering more stone, and looking for dwarf scroll number 4. And I know I got dwarf scroll number 4 at some point, because I said dwarf scroll number 4.
Dwarf scroll number 4. What?
This was the final bit of game knowledge I had from my trial run of the game that hadn't panned out in this full playthrough. My efforts didn't end up yielding that scroll, but I did find 3 interesting secret notes. The first said something was hidden behind the community center, and the second said something absurd. Someone is waiting for you on level 100 in the Skull Cavern. You're kidding me. Yeah, and I had no idea how I was gonna get there. The third note was something of a treasure map with an X marking the spot and everything. Officially 3 reasons deep for leaving the mines, I did so, following our new treasure map to the X, but lacking the hoe to dig it up. I also ran behind the community center, finding this strange stone Junimo statue. Abigail asked a strange question about art, and I noticed the Skull Cavern level 100 absurd note actually became an official quest. You have got to be kidding me. I smelted a little iron with the tiny amount of coal from today, collected this wine, and headed to bed, forgetting the animals entirely. I woke up on day 106 to a gold hoe notification, grumpy animals, and a letter from the ever-generous Robin with a pumpkin soup recipe. I love that she gave us a recipe for something that's grown in the fall, in the middle of winter. She's so thoughtful. I went to Clint's to collect the golden hoe and process some geodes. 3 of these were new minerals, which I gave to Gunther, earning a chair, and sold the rest back to Clint. Birthday check. Leia's was tomorrow. Okay, wait. Apparently it's Leah. I've been getting that wrong. Leah's birthday was tomorrow. I followed our new treasure map once more, this time with my hoe, to dig up our prize, which was this strange doll. Okay. I gave this to Gunther, earning a rare grow. Now that's more like it. This is how the collections were going so far. Not too shabby. I gave a few flowers out, confirming Leah liked this one for tomorrow, and went home, smelting some gold and fire quartz. I put the chair down and checked on our trees before fishing in the river, hoping to figure out the mysteries of the catfish and shad. I got this green algae in the process, which I remembered Caroline had asked for, but apparently I was too late. She hated it. I wanted to see what was happening with Abigail at 8 p.m., but I was concerned Pierre's door would lock at 5. So I waited inside the closed store, like any sensible man, waiting for the store owner's daughter to invite me to her room. This didn't happen, so I walked into her room at 8, but she was in her bed and unresponsive. I believe most people call this being asleep. So after being extremely weird, I left all the way outside and tried the door again to see if I just had to reset things. Then the cutscene started. Abigail had Stardew's version of a Ouija board and nearly spelled out that she loved us on the board. After her blunder, she knocked the board over and told us to leave. More than confused and struggling to decide which of us was weirder, I went home, sold some stuff, checked what was left for the bundles, and called it night early. People really like to show up at our door at the crack of dawn in this town. Abigail showed up at our door, apologizing for yesterday's love debacle. And just when she'd left, Gunther was on the scene, also filling our porch. He was here to thank us for all the donations and give us a century-old key in exchange for our generosity. I was grateful because there was a grate I was pretty sure this would unlock. 2 interlopers addressed, I checked our luck before leaving the farm, talking about how I'd like to cook spicy eels for luck. Like, the spicy eel stuff was really good, but I assume that I need both the recipe for spicy eel and also an eel and also some spice, which I feel like I have 0 of those things. Shane mentioned Marnie liked to eat this thing. Okay, Shane, thanks for telling me that, I think. I rolled up on this ominous sewer doorway and turned the key to see what might happen. This was indeed my first time in a strange green sludge sauna, and the first thing I encountered was something that looked like it might have once been a dog. It would seemingly allow an offering in exchange for respeccing my career choices at levels 5 and 10. But I didn't want that. I also found the strange shadowy figure from before, down here standing proudly among the grime. I walked up further to learn he had a name. And my guy Krobus had a shop, let me tell you. He had void eggs, whatever those are. He had a star drop, and I know what those are. And he even had this exceedingly expensive return scepter. For a crisp 2 million G, I could have a magic go home right now stick. This game is wild. I checked this nearby ladder, and it brought us directly into town. I descended once more to check this spot in the west, and, well, it's a weird statue. Whoa! Well, there's some kind of weird, some kind of force field blocking your path. Okay. Astonished and bewildered, I went back to farm to do the farm things. I noticed amidst these farm things that the barn had been upgraded.
Oh, Robin finished. Oh, it's time for pigs, baby. It's time for pigs. Oh, it's time for pigs and sheep. Oh, it's time for pigs and sheep.
Indeed, it was that time. So after taking care of all the birds, I headed to Marnie's. But she wasn't home. So I went back to the farm to process all the goods from today's gatherings. I dug this skeletal hand on the way to Robin, hoping to see if there was another upgrade past deluxe. But she wasn't home. So I went mining, once again looking for that dwarf scroll. I got a bunch of stone, as well as this interesting sword I recycled, and a secret note about Maru's invention, and what pieces she still needed. These became loved gifts for her, which made enough sense. I turned in late that night and heard this strange cooing noise overnight.
Okay, lots of mining. Oh.
Why did that happen? I did a bunch of mining. I don't know why that just happened. I woke up on day 108 confused, searching for answers about the noise, but found nothing. I ended up just collecting the processed goods and gandering at our lovely auto feed system in the barn. I went to Gunther's to lend him a hand. Then stopped by Marnie's to buy pigs. But pigs are quite expensive, so I bought a sheep instead because they're slightly less expensive. I ran to the barn to see my new baby sheep, and it appeared to have wool. I assumed I could perhaps shear the thing, given this wasn't like milk. Nope. Just tried to shear a baby, didn't I? Okay. I found Maru on my way to Robin's and gave her a battery, one of the few items on our invention list, and she was thrilled. I went to the quarry to bonk rocks while making plans for how to use the day, and found this secret note in one of them. This one seemed to be a treasure map leading to Calico Desert this time. I also found this ancient sword buried in the quarry. I sold some things and decided to turn in early so I could see the new event. It took a full day, but on day 109, I found the source of that strange cooing the night before last. I don't know how this thing just showed up on the farm, but okay, it's not that weird compared to some other things that have happened. I also figured out today that the watering can has the same upgrade benefits as the hoe, watering a larger area when held. That very hoe, now golden, had a third stage of this, enabling a 3x3 area of hoeage. After the testing, I walked to town to find Stardew Valley's version of Christmas in full swing. From the giant, decadent evergreen to the presents underneath it, to the feast of foods among the townsfolk, this was indeed holiday cheer. I spoke to everyone, gleaning very little other than festive spirit, old legends, and recipe secrets. I gave Demetrius his crystal fruit, which I think he liked, and then immediately, George gave us our gift, a purple mushroom. He immediately went full grumpy mode and decided we didn't like his gift, further grumbling about how expensive it was. I, for the record, did like it, and was full well planning to use it for a life elixir. I checked the socials around this time, and this is how they were doing. The limited shop had nothing but decoration, so I headed home, having traded a fruit for a mushroom. It was now automatically quite late, and I had forgotten the animals. Again. So I milked our sleeping livestock, stole eggs from sleeping birds, and went to sleep myself. The season was nearing its end on day 110, so Gus decided this was the perfect time to ask for a seasonal fish. Come on, Gus, why you gotta do me like that? I gathered up the processed goods, tended to the animals, found another chicken statue buried in the ground. What is going on with this game and statues? I bought this pig quickly before leaving, petting it reassuringly despite its huge size as a baby. I grabbed our processed goods and went to Pam to buy a ticket. But my pig purchase had left me without enough funds to purchase a ticket. So I ran back to the farm, grabbed the mayo out of the shipping box, and ran it over to Pierre to sell quickly. Pennies in hand, I ran back to the bus to pay the fare, and soon found myself back in the cavern. I did manage to get some iridium ore, even an actual node that wasn't a crab this time, but never got any holes. I did find the strange secret note about checking a bush at 12:40 a.m., but by this point, there was absolutely no way I was making it to level 100 tonight. So I chose instead to check the treasure map from before, hoeing this area, and receiving another strange doll. Okay, doll in hand, I traveled back to the valley and decided to follow instructions. Oh! This game never ceases to amaze me. I laughed my way back to the farm, started smelting a new iridium bar, and drifted off to sleep. Things were falling apart on the penultimate day of winter. Literally. Look at these fences. I also noticed I ran out of hay this morning as the auto-feed system hadn't completely auto-fed. After tending to the animals, I went to Clint's to make some rocks fall apart, but got no new minerals. I did donate the second strange doll and ancient sword though. Speaking of minerals, I wanted to give Maru a diamond for her invention, but slammed into another cutscene between Robin and Demetrius. Robin had apparently asked Demetrius to go get fruit from the store, and Demetrius, the genius, had returned with tomatoes. Somehow, it was up to me to settle this heated debate between two grown adults. Demetrius asked me up front how I would classify a tomato. And technically, I would classify it as a fruit given it's literally a fruiting body with the seeds on the inside. I expected trouble to ensue, but Demetrius promptly handled the situation with uncharacteristic grace, much to my relief. I gave Maru the diamond before leaving this troubling household and went back to the good old farm. Here, I smelted iron, made 10 more furnaces, and smelted even more things until I was completely out of coal again. I even collected all the metal bars, all the while not having any random domestic squabbles. How about that? Also, how about all this money? Winter's chill was abating, and so was our hay supply. Or so I thought. The silo was empty, but I still had plenty of hay in this chest next to the silo. I refilled the silo, took care of the animals, and decided to explore another of the many secret notes we'd nabbed. This one mentioned shaking a bush at a specific time, again, specifically on the last day of a season. I was genuinely worried that something like Demetrius and Robin would pop out of this one, arguing about something, but no. We got this thing. Honestly, the Lewis and Marnie thing made way more sense than this. What even is this thing? I remembered after this that Gus wanted a seasonal fish, and that it was now the last day of the season. So I went fishing in the ocean for a long, long time, and I almost gave up. But after many hours, I reeled in this bad boy. I brought it to the saloon in last-minute style, completing the quest and heading home. I sold a bunch of things, including the fish and other farm production. I found this beach totem in the ground as well, and noticed that the fencing that was hardwood hadn't collapsed like the rest. I decided perhaps my next fencing I would do intentionally out of hardwood. Today's sales were inching us ever closer to the star drop from the sewer. Spring had finally sprung, and Stardew did Stardew things by immediately having someone standing right in front of our door in the morning. Kent, father to Sam and husband to Jody, had come back from a tour overseas and wanted to introduce himself. It was kept that simple, and he left, leaving us with our incredibly messy farm. This looked like a job for my golden scythe. I read a couple of letters, one with Robin giving us a rather tiny amount of extra wood. Guilty conscience, Robin? The other was about the price of raw materials at Robin's and Clint's Rising. There, that explains the pity wood. I took care of the farm as a whole, clearing out the silo to generate more hay, and all the other usual suspects, netting our first large goat milk in the midst of it all. I also sheared my first wool as well, planning to bring this glorious stuff to the even more glorious community center. I did a quick birthday check and found Kent's was added, and on the 4th. I wanted to make an effort to welcome this guy back to town, so I tried to give him a flower, but had some trouble.
Also, Kent, hello. Hi. Hello, farmer. I've been gone so long, I feel like a stranger. Yeah, perhaps a flower will make you feel less strange? You just got away from me there. You just got away. Wait. Haley, you're getting in the way. I'm trying to make a stranger feel less strange. But maybe it'll make him feel more strange. Hey, this is a really great gift. Thanks. All right. See? Welcome home, Kent. Welcome home. Welcome to the land of the home. Welcome to the homeland. It's so good that after that charade, I went to the glorious building and dropped off that large goat milk, completing the animal bundle and earning a cheese press. I had intended to turn the wool in as well, but for that, I would need to turn it into cloth. I went back home, placing and replacing the cheese press in anticipation of a new fence, and made a structure I'd remembered called a loom to turn the wool into cloth. I did a quick Secret Woods run before turning in for the night. Spring had sprung, but sadly, our orange tree hadn't, at least not last night. I collected the cloth on the way to inspect the trees, wondering why it was unable to grow. I cleared out all this clutter, hoping to solve the issue, and took care of the animals. I also got this letter from Pierre about new quality fertilizers and seeds in his shop. I needed the latter, so I jogged over to make a bulk purchase. I bought a little bit of everything, in fact, with emphasis on beans because they persist through the season, and had a glance at these trees for next time. I turned the cloth into the artisan bundle on the way home, using the hoe efficiently to till soil for our new farm. I noticed I'd purchased 12 of every seed, which was decidedly strange, as these sprinklers watered in sets of 8. So I went back to Pierre with some produce to buy 4 more of each seed and sell the produce, in order to reach the spicy 20,000 G for the star drop down below. I brought the cold hard G down to Krobus, netting the star drop and eating it instantly because I apparently couldn't help myself. I went to the Secret Woods, buzzing with energy, and saw Leah painting by the water. She had something flirty to say before I went to bonk big stumps. Then I headed home, planting and fertilizing the new seeds, as well as the strawberry and ancient seeds I'd saved. In the midst of my farming glory, I passed out once again on my own farm. Linus apparently found us last night, but that was no reason to slow down. Now there was the rain, as I planted everything I hadn't managed last night, except for some of the beans. The beans grow on something solid, so you can't walk through them like most plants, so I had to be careful where I planted those. I also planted this rice by the southern lake before setting to making more quality sprinklers. I was pleasantly surprised by how much iron, gold, and refined quartz I had, and after a little transmutation, filled the whole farm with quality sprinklers. But then I had an idea with all those bean seeds I didn't know what to do with. With a new northern edition, the farm was roaring with future funds, all automated and ready to go. I took care of the animals, worked on additional fencing and gates, and collected the processed goods before sleep. I started the day once again focused on this farm, taking care of the animals and selling the sprinklers I hadn't added back in. I did a quick birthday check and saw it was the new guy's day of birth. I stopped in Pierre's to sell stuff and buy more seeds, buying 60 kale this time, as it seemed to have a similar vibe to bok choy, which I thoroughly liked. I also noticed Pierre had a daffodil, which I knew Kent liked from my flawless welcome attempts, so I bought that as well. I took another wistful gander at these tree saplings, but held off for now. I dropped Kent the flower, snagging a heart with him, before heading home and realizing I'd been walking around with milk in my inventory this whole time. I cared for the birds, planted the kale, repositioned 2 scarecrows, and swapped in one last quality sprinkler here. With that money-making machine in place, I began to set up the coop fence, but then thought about moving the coop. I'd noticed a Move Farm Buildings button at Robin's, and I wanted to try it. Hopefully it wouldn't be too expensive or take too long. I tacked on this gate before running to get both kinds of wood, and I came back to work on the barn's fence. My inventory overfilled at one point, and I tried to drop items to deal with that, but this backed
magnetic ring was just too powerful. This all happened because I decided I wanted to move the cheese press and mayo machines, but part of the way through, I realized I needed to sleep at the last second. I went to go sort out more farm things on day 117, but ran face first into our girlfriend Emily. She talked to us about cloth and gave us access to her sewing machine. We could apparently make clothes with cloth and a secondary item. Guessing this had happened because we'd just made our first cloth, I moved to farm work. I quite literally moved these processing machines around 3 times before finally being satisfied with this as a temporary solution. I would just put everything here until I had a better idea. Part of the way through putting everything here, I went to Robin to ask about moving services. I was rather indecisive about where to put it, looking around the whole farm, and during this, noticed we had an apricot on our tree. I eventually picked this spot down here, locked it in, and awaited some steep cost or resource demand. But none came. In fact, there was even no time frame to wait. Robin, I guess you're not all that bad. After returning to the building that had just seemingly teleported, I checked on the birds. Did you guys feel an earthquake just now by any chance? I know that might have felt a little strange. I took care of them and added some of the fencing for them, and look at this. Yes! We're growing fruit! I also checked on the pig. That pig looks like it might be an adult. That's a little bit of a large rump I'm seeing right there. Everything else looks the same. I think you just got a fatter ass now, my friend. Good for you. Society would indicate that that's a good thing for you. Congratulations. Queuing the yield, creating useful storage spots, and clearing up other areas of the farm, I managed the goobiest thing so far. This area. No, God, what? No! Yeah, I blew up my wood chipper. Not to mention that poor gravestone. Shaking that off, I went to the community center, turning in an apricot to the artisan bundle, earning a keg, and completing the entire room. The 4th star was ours, and this building really felt like it was starting to come alive again. With just 2 stars to go now, I perused the fish and bulletin board items we still needed before heading home once more. I put some finishing touches on the farm and went to bed, planning to rearrange even more things tomorrow. Overnight, I witnessed the Junimos repairing what would soon be the best and worst building on the farm. The Junimos had repaired this thing, the greenhouse, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with this just yet. In the meantime, Emily had sent us mail asking for an apricot, which I immediately plucked from the tree. I did some brief farm clearing and found a secret note on the farm about the older bachelors in town from someone's diary. Strange as this was, we did at least learn some of the things they like. I started putting all the decorations I'd acquired in the north of the farm, the ones I hadn't blown up. Once again, not yet having a long-term plan. I put down these furnaces among the many other things in this thing area I had going here, and somehow managed to almost make the same mistake. This is a decoration I can go put by the decorations. Oh my god. Pick it up. Oh my god. Okay. I almost lost it. After moving more things without blowing them up, I went to Emily's to give her the apricot, but she wasn't home. I did manage to find her sewing machine though, which I tested out in probably the worst way possible. There you go. And then what am I supposed to add? Looks like I can add all of these things. What? A mushroom? What? Place cloth or dyeable clothing in the feed and the materials in the spool. You will make ? I made Moral shirt. This shirt features the iconic spring mushroom. I just did that. That's what I did, isn't it? I made a shirt out of a mushroom. God, that's awful. Okay, let's never do that again. Yes, I chose my first secondary clothing item as the nastiest looking mushroom in the game. Press the like button if you're impressed by how horrible of a choice that was. I went looking for Emily, not only for the apricot, but also now to apologize for the mushroom chunks that were probably in her sewing machine. I decided to check the saloon, but ran into a Gus cutscene. This one was cut and dry. The saloon wasn't doing great financially, and Pam hadn't paid her tab in weeks. I politely, but sternly, told her the former, implying she'd best be fixing the latter, which she did rather quickly. Weeks, Pam? Weeks? Emily was indeed in the non-cutscene Celino? Emily was indeed in a non-cutscened saloon, and I gave her the new fruit, completing the quest, before scurrying back to the farm to continue to get things in order. I took care of the four-legged animals who were both walking and trying to sleep. I had a wild time trying to milk the sleepwalking cows in the middle of the day. I continued organizing, including putting away my fungal shirt, never to be seen again. I also threw down some torches, more gates, and moved literally everything I could before heading to sleep for the night. I forgot the birds though, and so I began day 119 apologetically gathering eggs. I continued aggressively shifting things to this catch-all zone, queuing some bones, eggs, and an apricot for processing. Lastly, I moved my super rare stuff chest onto the porch. With that action, I had completed the farm revamp. Within seconds, I got a notification about a train passing through, so after gathering the mushrooms, I went to the station. This train was just a passenger train, but it had brought me close to Robin's, where I stopped to have Robin move the silo to this spot right here. Birthday check. Today was Lewis. Happy birthday, Mayor. You get mayonnaise. I'm sure he loved it. Speaking of love, here's how the socials were doing. I sold the remaining goods to Pierre for enough cash to purchase 3 new saplings: peach, pomegranate, and apple, leaving only one until we had every kind. I cleared this southern portion of the farm, accidentally destroying a good few saplings along the way. Big stump time. I got a note there with a hint about the mermaid show. I guess I had missed something there after all. I harvested the parsnips and garlic, and without seeds to replant, I went to bed with arable land going to waste. I started the morning off grabbing a new apricot, noticing that our orange tree had grown, and fixing that lost ground for replanting. I followed up with the animal care and big stump adventures, returning to finish the coop's fence and start growing grass within it. I collected the goods, then checked the mail to find a spaghetti recipe from Lewis and an incredibly timely rainbow shell from Demetrius. Mr. Chi had asked us for one of these. I swung briefly by Pierre's to sell stuff and buy more garlic, as well as a cherry sapling, the final sapling type. We had officially sapped them all. I jogged over to the lockbox to turn in the rainbow shell, answering Leah's question along the way. There, I realized I'd been a goober. I had been told to bring the rainbow shell to the box at the train station, not this box. I stopped by the farm, replanting, but still having a few open spots. I had all the forageables I needed to make spring seeds, save a daffodil, so I grabbed these in case I got lucky on my travels. I also planted the final fruit saplings, as well as many mahogany saplings to replenish those I'd slain yesterday. Soon after, I was at the train station, double checking I was following the quest correctly before tossing the shell into this box. We received a new task stating we must put 10 beets in the mayor's fridge. I was pretty sure beet seeds came from Sandy's shop, and it was too late to head there, so I spent the rest of the night looking for Maru to give another invention piece. I did never find her, but I did find the daffodil I needed. I made some spring seeds, took a look at the current state of our collections, planted those seeds, and went to sleep. I started day 121 with this gift from Jody, a bountiful harvest, and some decent replanting. As I was taking care of our 4-legged friends, I noticed our pig friend was now an adult. But I was yet still unsure of how to get the truffles from it, so I left it be for now. I shipped off some tulips and potatoes for today's bounty before heading off to the desert to buy new seeds. Specifically, I was looking for beets, but the description said they were to be grown in fall, so I bought a couple others: rhubarb, which was a spring crop, and cactus, which was to be grown indoors. We'd just unlocked the greenhouse though, so I figured that's what inside meant. I also took another glance at this bouncer, who I began to theorize was at the other end of this mysterious chi quest. I made the glorious revelation that these trees were also wood, so I chopped them greedily, finding a few buried artifacts along the way. I also finally really took notice of how strange these 3 poles were, and wondered what on earth they were for. Stay tuned. Back in the valley, I planted the rhubarb on the farm, the cactus fruit in the greenhouse, and stored the beets, because those were for fall. Too bad I didn't have some kind of structure to control climate to grow things in. I also assumed I couldn't put sprinklers in the greenhouse because it was indoors. I spent the rest of my day grabbing fallen train goods and mining in the low levels of the mines. I did get this weird level down there that looked much more like the Golden Scythe Cave than the lower mines biome, but couldn't figure out anything useful about it. I still have no idea if I missed something special. I almost made it to bed that night. The next morning, Stardew decided to give me a hint to stop my gooby activities, with Evelyn at our door. She gave us this garden pot which could be used indoors to grow out-of-season crops. I stood there for a moment realizing I almost goobed up the entire purpose of the greenhouse and that it too was indoors. I decided to test the theory it could grow out-of-season crops by planting 2 beets, one in the crop pot and one in the greenhouse soil, and seeing if neither withered. After this experiment had been launched, I tested something else in the coop. I had wondered in my first 100 days whether this thing was an incubator, so I tried putting an egg in it. It accepted my egg, but the coop was supposedly full, so I didn't know what would happen. Hoping I hadn't doomed an egg to early death, I queued some mayo and smelted some gold before heading in the barn to stare at my pig, still wondering where in the world the truffles would come from. I guess all of my brain cells were tied up with the greenhouse conundrum. I harvested our bounty of the day, including very much kale, except this piece. Drop your heartfelt woes in the comments for the forgotten kale. After selling much of this harvest, I went to Pierre's to buy a whole lot of kale, but he was closed. Guess I'll buy that tomorrow. Birthday check. Today is Vincent. The weekly quest board had a quest about selling 100 potatoes in a week, so after accepting, I decided I would buy a bunch of potatoes instead of kale tomorrow. I went to Gunther's, running into Vincent, and giving him an amethyst for his birthday, before donating these 2 treasures to the museum. I spent the rest of this day fishing. I really wanted to catch the shad and catfish, and suspected spring was the time, yet I didn't catch either. Sleep that night came with the boom of level 10 farming, demanding a tough choice. In the end here, I decided to go for artisan, but I really liked both. We also snagged this achievement called Singular Talent for getting 1 skill to level 10, not to mention these sweet overnight gains. On the morning of day 123, I saw we had 3 apricots on the tree. I also had seen in the comments that our lovely oinker needed to go outside to dig up truffles. Yeah, that makes sense. I thusly found myself chasing the four-legged lasses down for their milk this morning. A few eggs later, I was back at Pierre's, buying a lot of potatoes.
Give them to me. Give them to me.
I planted as many as I could, then collected the cheese. And our first truffle. Well, 2 truffles, actually.
Truffle. Yes, sir. That's such a weird sound. Okay.
I stepped back in the greenhouse, noting both the beets remained unwilted. A few minutes later, the greenhouse was full, with every beet planted and every extra space having a potato in it. I figured, why not? We have the space to grow, may as well grow. Soon after, I got to thinking, perhaps this greenhouse would be best used as a place to plant persisting crops, as perhaps they would just keep growing, never withering. I took our second truffle to the chef's bundle, and took stock of what was remaining for this building's magical repair before heading into the mines. I stopped by the quarry on the way, learning it doesn't just auto-respawn everything immediately. I grabbed ore for 1 more gold bar, as I wanted the next watering can's upgrade, since I would be using it every day for the greenhouse. I barely made it home that night, so I started smelting the gold first thing in the morning. I collected our first truffle oil, milked the animals, and employed a strategy the comments had mentioned regarding putting the correlating animal product processing machines in their correlating structures. So I put the cheese press in the barn for easy cheese making. Good stuff. I collected this truffle, then did the same process with the mayo machines, finding a beach totem in the dirt along the way. After watering the greenhouse, I read this letter from Marnie about a new luxury item called the Auto Grabber. It mentioned the capacity to take care of every farm animal I'd even heard about so far, including rabbits, which I didn't even have yet. Well, almost all of them. It was pricey, however, with a big tag of 25,000 G. Lewis also sent us a reminder about the Egg Festival, which I hadn't even considered. The events were going to happen all over again because it was a new year. I took the recently acquired gold to the local depressed blacksmith, ordered the gold watering can, and decided to begin saving for the auto grabber. I took to fishing again, searching once more for the elusive shad and or catfish, but came up empty once again. The rest of the day had passed by whilst I'd angled, so I went home and tucked myself in for a fishless Betty Bye. In that night's gamer dreams, level 8 fishing came along, giving me recipes I immediately forgot about. Day 125 was the day of our second egg festival, but I didn't remember that. I started the day harvesting, learning while at it that pigs make a digging sound when they dig up a truffle. I also found that forgotten kale today, harvested the garlic, and took a look at our potato quest. I hadn't realized when I'd taken it, but we were going to get to sell our potatoes the normal way, not to someone in particular, meaning we'd make money from them normally, as well as from the quest. After replanting more potato seeds in open spots, the egg festival notification popped, and I got frantic. I sold things, quickly took care of both the livestock and birds, and made it to the festival just in time. The event was similar to last year, including this lovely shop that I bought 10 strawberry seeds from. The dialogue, however, was different in some ways from the previous year. Most importantly was the dialogue from Willie, cluing me into something very important.
On rainy days, you'll find catfish in these waters.
Right. In the rain. I did the egg hunt again, this time securing 11 eggs, and winning a second year in a row. This time, the prize wasn't so exclusive, but cash is cash, baby. Concluding the event, I went home and grabbed all the different processed goods and placed our new strawberry seeds in the greenhouse chest for later. That night, we saw the largest daily revenue to date on the farm. The truffle oil was particularly potent. I started off day 126 with 2 notifications, one saying our pomegranate tree couldn't grow, and the other letting me know the gold watering can was ready. Fishing was on the mind that morning, as I need to catch the shad and catfish before the season was over. Remember when I said selling that shad on day 3 was a bad idea? After fruitless fishing, I took a break to read the legendary fish Lost book again, making plans for the crimson fish in summer, but also noticing this bit again, now having unlocked the sewer. I grabbed the golden watering can from Clint, and with it, officially reached gold tier on every tool. I planned on targeting the iridium pickaxe first, as that was the tool helping us get iridium, and went to Marnie's. There, I purchased the snazzy auto grabber she'd advertised, and fished again in the river by her, fruitlessly. After losing my patience once again with this infamously patient man's game, I went to the cart lady. She had a puffer fish in her stores, which I bought instantly, along with this interesting rare seed. I tried it home with this new loot, and plopped down the auto grabber in the middle of the barn, hoping that would work. I made some more truffle oil, watered the greenhouse with the watering can's new capacity, and stored this rare seed, thinking I might sow it in the greenhouse later. Fishing still on the brain, I took this fish to the CC, completing the specialty fish bundle, and earning a few dishes of the sea. This was going to be very helpful, as it gave a massive temporary boost to the fishing skill. And speaking of fishing, I wanted to do more of that, so I went to the mines to murk some bugs for bait. After making some bait, I journeyed back to the bowels of the town, standing in the most specific looking spot I could find. I caught absolutely and exclusively carp until eventually...
Where's the big boys?
Ooh, the big boys. The big boys.
Oh no, I'm messing it up. I'm not messing it up. I'm doing great. I'm doing awesome! Mutant carp.
And that was another legend in the bag. I snagged some more hardwood before heading to sleep that night, proud of my hideous catch. On day 127, I got a familiar notification about my pomegranate tree being unable to grow. Guess I forgot about that. I also got these letters, one with some loose change from Lewis, and another from Evelyn, asking for a leak. I sold a few things from last night before checking the barn. Ooh, it grabbed everything. Ooh. Ooh, it grabbed everything. It sure did, buddy. It grabbed stuff. I love this thing's grabbiness so much, I knew I had to get one for the coop. I harvested and replanted the farm, venturing out to fish once again because today, it was raining. On the way, I noticed these lovely things were back in season. And now that I knew about jelly, these would be important. Plus, I was getting 3 per bush now, which I think had to do with our much higher foraging level. I got down to fishing, snacking on one of these deep dive dishes to help. Eventually, I hooked one that was a little feisty. And when I landed it, I saw the telltale whiskers of a catfish. There was now but one fish left on our community center roster, the shad. You know, the one I sold. I ended up taking a break here, finding this prehistoric rib in the ground and taking this daily quest for Kent for a red mushroom to rub on his tooth? Sure, man, whatever. I bought a bunch more potato seeds, and I gave this rib to Gunther, earning a strange sloth skeleton M thing as a reward. I guessed M stood for middle, and tossed my line back in the water, catching another catfish. But I was getting worried I wouldn't find it. Oh, there it is. How about that? I took this Giga Shad over to the community center, turned both fresh fish in, and completed the river fish bundle. We technically earned 30 bait from this, but the big win was that this completed the entire aquarium. Look at that little guy, carrying our 5th star. 5 down, 1 to go. I took a glance at what was left in our final set of bundles, gazed happily at the better looking rooms, and started making plans on the way home. Next up, we'd go for that deluxe coop, then scoop up an auto grabber to go with it, once we already had the auto feeding in place. I did the usual suspects to the farm late this day, tacking on a hardwood plus berries run before heading home. I barely remembered about the pomegranate tree, and watered as much of the greenhouse as I could before running home to sleep. Overnight, the Junimos could be seen doing something to this glittering boulder. I sold more things from last night next morning, and watered our poor dog's bowl for the first time in a while. I harvested the farm, checking the quests along the way, as I just pulled up Evelyn's leak. I replaced the poor tiny trees I destroyed clearing the farm, before heading to the coop and encountering this error message. This made sense, and I was glad I didn't just auto-delete the poor baby chick. More berries. I gave Kent his toothache mushroom, completed the quest, and checked on the socials, of which some seemed to be decaying. Yikes, so that's a thing. I went to Evelyn's to give her a sneak peek at this leak, but Alex decided to cut in. I'll keep it brief and tell you he felt worthless for not being the book smart type, but I reassured him that everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. Then no, that's Alex again, this time without a shirt. He mentioned apologizing for his bravado and arrogance for having believed in his dream to go pro with his sports ball. This one actually caught me off guard, because I honestly disagreed. I liked his go-getter confident attitude, but the game didn't give me any choices this time. Stay strong, Alex. Don't let anybody bring you down. After pulling double duty on Alex's emotional state, I finally got a hold of Evelyn, handing over the leak, completing the quest. I decided that was enough for one day, and allocated the rest of the day to wood and berries. Oh, I remembered the boulder! The glittering boulder! Actually, I went to go see about that boulder, running into Willie, standing by where it used to be. In this cutscene, Willie taught us we could pan for ore, and gave us a new copper pan. I didn't find anything I could pan out the gate here, but I thought maybe soon I could upgrade the pan, as it was at copper tier already. Boulder questions answered, I ran home, chopping trees along the way. That night, the Gamer Sleep invoice brought in more than 22,000 G. Quite spicy, I must say. On day 129, I heard a lovely while harvesting potatoes. After the livestock and also grabbing iron for the pan upgrade, I took a look at our potato quest. We had officially harvested the requisite potatoes and just needed to ship them, and wait a day for that to process, it turned out. I also watered the greenhouse, getting 1 beet of the 10 I would need for the chi quest. More berries, had robins. I learned the stone and wood costs for the coop. Then, at Clint's, I learned the pan did not have an upgrade. And, at the mayor's, I learned I couldn't put any beets in his fridge until I had all 10. And, at Marnie's, I learned she wasn't home. Well, okay then. I decided maybe the town wasn't for me today. Okay, the rest of this day is now allocated literally just to chopping wood. I ended up with this much wood for the coop and future projects. I awoke to the sound of quest completion on day 130 as the potatoes had officially shipped. We now had a rather spicy chunk of change. Lewis sent us a letter with a mini shipping bin, giving us a smaller but more portable spot to sell things from. I tossed it on the farm, had a few horseradish for breakfast, and made my way to Robin's with all the supplies needed for this lovely coop upgrade. I ended up encountering some pannable water while waiting for a door to unlock, and nabbed 2 gold ore. Nifty. Once that door was open, I ordered the deluxe coop, before accosting Marnie, grabbing a second auto grabber. Look how many berries we have. I made a bunch of a hardwood fence for the four-legged livestock, as well as a life elixir, before harvesting 73 more potatoes and some beets from the greenhouse. So maybe I'd gone a little overboard. I sold it all but the beets for Chi or Lewis. I fenced in our non-winged friends before picking a strangely large number of daffodils on the way to Lewis's fridge. Upon delivering the beets, I found something strange. Wait a second, there's a note taped to the milk. It's addressed to you. Okay, good job, kid. Your final task, give the sand dragon his last meal. After raiding his fridge, I gave the mayor a springweed before realizing that the milk note had become a quest. I let the comments know I didn't want help with this one, and they listened. So prepare to enjoy the floundering that resulted. Before heading to sleep, I chopped down this green bean so I could see what the ancient seed had grown into so far. Then I sold more things, catching a nice 26,000 G bag in my sleep. Days 131 and 132 were very brief, and I'll explain why very soon. But on the first of those, I found these spring onions, encountered a secret note about Alex's training diet, and completely cleared Cindersap Forest of all of its resources. I also hit the secret woods and earned level 10 foraging overnight, picking the tracker talent, allowing us to locate nearby forageables. And on day 132, the coop finished upgrading, giving more room, and allowing the baby chick to hatch. I spent a large portion of the day trying to figure out how the forage was being revealed to me, until I finally noticed very tiny arrows at the edge of the screen. I also gave Shane an amethyst for his birthday. Now, why were those days so short, you might be asking? Well, I should mention, right at the time of those days being recorded, several troubling real-life events happened all at once, and I didn't play Stardew for 5 months. I'm happy to say I did make my way back to this game, as it's absolutely lovely. But why bother mentioning this? It's all in a compressed format anyway, right? Well, 5 months away has a way of making you forget about lots of things. The biggest shock of them all was remembering that we have a greenhouse. I also took a gander at our collections tab, realizing we still had so much to do. I also had another review of this legendary fish lost book, and started talking about that in the future, I'd probably have to ask you guys for help with finding these fish. It's the future. If you've got some hints for catching the remaining fish, drop them in the comments. I dug up this trilobite before having a look at the socials and skills we'd achieved so far. Seeing as we had mining, combat, and fishing left to level up, I decided we'd focus on the first two on lucky days in the cavern, and fishing on the not so lucky days. When I got back to the farm, I sold things, and decided immediately that I hated the organization of the farm. Again. I started working furiously on changes for that, moving very many things. And I mean moving very many things. I had this little oopsie along the way. Why did I think that was a good idea? When and what? Why did I do any? Oh! I was forced to sleep before I'd concluded the rework, earning the monoculture achievement for selling 300 of a single crop, as well as earning 11,000 G. I guess maybe the overkill on the potatoes wasn't such a bad idea. Day 134 was the second day of the great reorganization. By today, I'd moved everything that wasn't literally the coop or barn. I also found this organize button. I also began on this day this idea of saving some things instead of selling everything we produced. Strap in for the wildest storing bonanza on this side of the Gem Sea. I went to Calico late that day, hoping to snag some skill points as well as iridium ore. I did manage to get some ore from the slimes, as well as gems, other ores, and funny clips for YouTube Shorts and TikTok from my reintroduction to this cavern of terror. Oh! Is that a bone? Yo, stop everything. Did you just drop a bone? Men said, and then left a bone behind. A prehistoric tibia. Well, that's cool, I guess. I slept like a log that night, securing level 9 combat and obtaining this nifty iridium band recipe. On day 135, I pulled off the greatest feat any god gamer can. I recycled 2 items with precision and brought our total G value to this. I was a proud farmer on this day. I got to harvesting and toyed with the idea of doing less planting and more livestock-focused farming in the future, as it was automatable, in theory allowing for more time to focus on completionist tasks each day. I kept storing everything we made before checking the luck and heading to the cavern for more plundering. I scored more gems, stone, and ore on this trip. This particular horde of whatever these things are dropped a spicy eel and a rabbit's foot. I had a rather close encounter, found this farm totem, and then had the classic gamer oopsie. I took my ashamed self over to the Adventurers Guild, ordered the item recovery for the only reasonable choice here, and took a look at my socials again before sleeping off the day's wounds. My gamer pride was quite wounded after all. The next morning my wounds were healed and my spirits were rejuvenated by this letter, returning our spicy blade to our hands. And of course, Jody ordered too much fertilizer again. Today was the day of the flower dance once again, and this time people liked me. So after moving these jars and storing every food item I could in the fridges, I went to dance, far more confident than last time. I first checked the shop to make good on the mistakes of the past by purchasing this rare crow, as well as some forage to store for later potential seeds. Then, after a few brief encounters, I concluded this event's dialogue wouldn't change. Except this encounter, baby, because this time Emily was gonna dance with me. The dance itself was rather strange, though, with me positioned slightly forward and also not wearing the same outfit as the other dudes. Ah well, despite the symmetry, or lack thereof, I'd done it. I'd really danced with someone. Manhood intact, I was brought home, quickly stepping onto the farm to place our 6th rarecrow. There were supposedly 8 of these, so I was starting to ponder the final 2's locations. I also jogged over to the central board to drop off this rabbit's foot to the enchanter's bundle, before literally writing down the remaining requirements. 2 were clearly fruit that we'd receive in fall, while the other 3 I was still unsure of. After some lovely snoozing, I awoke to do the bean business once more, then repositioned these rarecrows, harvested kale, and found a super useful game setting.
Can we get mute animal sounds? Oh my god!
Ah, sweet cranial peace. How sweet the lack of sound. I once again missed some kale whilst harvesting and got to business on the other daily chores, among which I planted 10 strawberry seeds in the greenhouse. I also found some of the missing kale, testing out our new mini shipping bin with it. Today, one of my worries of the 5 remaining community center items took over my very soul. I looked avidly for this thing called a fiddlehead fern. I searched high and low, muttering fiddlehead fern to myself most of the time.
Where are the fiddlehead ferns? Fiddlehead fern. Fiddlehead fern. Fiddlehead fern. Fiddlehead fern? Fiddlehead fern? Fiddlehead fern. Fiddlehead with the head of a fiddle.
And while I didn't find the fiddlehead fern, I did get a pretty sizable amount of wood and learned that the green forage tracker arrows pointed to panning spots. Not even the train station held answers for my fern queries, and still too did it hold secrets of its own, with this big immovable rock and triple question marked green thing. I came home that night without a fern, but still got everything else I could have needed done in the day. I even had another one of these odd things show up overnight.
This hasn't happened since like the 2nd day. I mean, I can tell you, I really don't think I needed this. Could you turn it into a fiddlehead fern? Okay, bye. Goodbye. Could you have maybe magically turned that into a fiddlehead fern? That would be so awesome.
The fairy hadn't turned any of it into a fiddlehead fern, but Marnie did send us some hay in the mail. The fairy had sped up some kale as well, so I grabbed that, noticing afterwards that at some point during yesterday's fern fossicking, I'd obtained a secret note. Somebody had lost their mom's necklace, but the note didn't say who or where precisely it had been lost. We had a general location though. After storing all the new gains, I did a good old birthday check. This time it was Pierre, but I figured I'd ask him about a fiddlehead fern, as it was my latest obsession, but he had nothing of the sort. No fern, no birthday gift. I brought this tibia I'd been carrying around for a while to Gunther. I mean, it's pretty normal to just carry around a leg bone, right? I checked every lost book in the library, and not one had a word about a fern. I did stumble into this one, though, about different capacities of a keg. It wasn't just for wine. It could also make juice, beer, and pale ale. I took this daily quest from Linus, who wanted a diamond to put under his pillow. Quite an ask for a man who lives in a tent, but I mean, okay. I dug up another chicken statue, collected the day's mushrooms, and brought Linus his priceless gem to sleep with in his tent. Man's got his priorities straight, I suppose. Then I was back by the bathhouse, looking for a necklace this time. I checked all over the station, clicking everywhere like it was a Pokemon game. I even clicked on this water right here, before deciding perhaps it was in the bathhouse. I waded in, spam clicking all over the bathwater like a normal Stardew player, but eventually threw in the towel for the night. I rather needed a towel after that search, to be honest. I kept collecting, processing, and storing things away on day 139, missing kale again, which at this point was on brand for my goobering. I learned cactus fruit was a persisting plant, harvesting our first homegrown desert fruit, before making a strange decision. I looked at these trees over here and decided they didn't look bad enough. They were just too straight and lined up perfectly, so I chopped every other row down. I decided instead to stagger them, replanting each row so the new trees would grow up 2 spots to the left of the current rows. I'm not sure why I thought this was a good idea, but I did end up getting some wood out of it. The day was now late, but the comments had decided to bail me out of the necklace puzzle. I'd been right on the money, but lacked the tool to acquire the prize. But now, thanks to a not so subtle hint, we had the necklace. I began to reason through which characters had a mom that they lived with, and therefore to whom I should give it back, before catching some shut-eye. The final day of spring had arrived, and with it, a completely harvested farm. The poor beans would die, but everything else was harvested. I noticed my fridges were a touch cramped, and realized this might be a long-term issue. I was also beginning to remember the TV, learning the lucky lunch recipe from the Queen of Sauce. I took this daily quest from Maru before concluding the most likely candidate for this necklace was Abigail. And apparently, I was right. I still haven't decided whether you can just give this to anyone with a mom living in town, or if I really got this right out the gate.
How about a diamond? Hey, how'd you know I was hungry? This looks delicious. Yeah, you're still weird as hell.
Pierre sold me a fair chunk of jazz seeds, which I bought because of the lunky lunch. Which I bought because of the lucky lunch recipe. I then completely forgot about Lucky Lunch as a recipe. I also found a few more quality of life things today, like that C and X on the keyboard function as the mouse buttons, as well as this add to existing stacks button within storages. I tried out 2 bombs on the rock in the train station, coming up empty, before reviewing my lovely skills and heading to bed early that night. I was rather excited for our second summer. Summer was here, and that of course meant a whole lot of dead plants. The ancient seed plants were thankfully an exception. The tree fruits had changed over, and orange fruits were now in season. I started making jelly out of these instead of apricots, but the animal aspect of the daily farm chores stayed exactly the same. I also noticed this setting in storages that disabled the color picker section, which made things look a little cleaner. There were some grapes to forage on the way to Maru, who I had this incredibly painful moment with. Hey Maru, you asked for a red fungus? Oh, that's exactly what I need to power my latest invention, Watson. Well, you did say that on the notice board. Thank you. You're welcome. You said that on the notice board. Do you still like them? Yuck, you thought I would like this. Yes! I figured maybe you'd need to be able to power it more than once. Let's try not to think about that one too much. I grabbed this weekly quest for Emily to get specific good rocks for her. Specifically, she wanted these 5, which I had a feeling I had all of already. I nabbed this spiceberry on the way home to check, passing also by the TV. Living off the land told me something we already knew about trains, but at least I've technically seen it now. I didn't know if watching every single one of these was going to be part of the 100%. In fact, I still don't. I had 3 of the rocks Emily wanted, but I still needed to get topaz and jade for her. I went to try processing these geodes for it. I may do that at some point. Well, I guess that's not happening today. I went instead by Pierre's to buy seeds. Pierre, I need to buy seeds. Are you closed? Why is everything closed so quickly? Why is everything closed so quickly? I missed birthdays. I missed Right then, who needs seeds anyway? I checked the train station for fiddleheads, but no luck. I foraged the sweet pea before checking the secret woods as well. We get a perk that... A fiddlehead fern. We have done it. We have succeeded. We now have a fiddlehead fern. With it, we are going to go to the community center and deposit the fiddlehead fern. This is good. I like this. I excitedly took this to the chef's bundle, but all the excitement faded when I noticed this maki roll requirement. I was very afraid I would need to get the recipe for this to be able to progress, and that I might have to wait for an unknown Queen of Sauce episode. I slept poorly that night, fearful I'd missed something key to my progression for a long, long time. I decided I need more space in my fridges on day 142, but I couldn't do that. So I made these pretend fridges instead. Pretend these are fridges. I did the usual farm things, featuring an orange this time, before checking the luck and seeing the spirits were very happy. I had Clint crack all our geodes, but to no avail. I turned in this new mineral though, scoring some espresso as a reward. It appeared to buff our movement speed, which seemed promising. I stored all the extra minerals, grabbed some food to test in the cavern, including cheese, which was surprisingly good for health, and set off for the cavern. I got the usual loot, gems, gold, stone, dropping down every hole or ladder I could find. I tested this spicy eel with the espresso and found myself faster than I could handle, hustling around, poking big slimes for iridium. Sadly, the speed got to my head, and I did the gamer bad, landing back in the hospital once again. I didn't actually lose that much, besides a decent run and a decent chunk of my dignity. I smelted 2 new iridium bars, as well as a lot of gold, before storing things and getting some recovery sleep. Those bars came out nice and shiny by the morning, and the animals were doing just fine in summer's heat. Caroline sent us a cauliflower, and fascinatingly, this was one of the few spring crops I hadn't saved that many of. What I did have a lot of, though, was cheese. This would become very important later. The Queen of Sauce taught us the plum pudding recipe before I left to get C's from Pierre. That might be how it's not closed on Wednesdays. No, dude, I'm never gonna plant anything. It's never gonna happen. God, I'm on the 3rd day of the season and I don't have any seeds. With nothing to plant and my mining ego thoroughly bruised, I turned my attention to the summer's legendary fish, the crimson fish. I gave Kent this pea on the way home, grabbed the fishing gear, and noticed we'd grown our first ancient fruit from the ancient seeds. I also grabbed some not so ancient fruit and threw some taps on our grown oak trees. And with that, it was time to go fishing. But I checked the luck first, and there was slightly good luck today. So I proceeded to abandon all other plans and dive right back into the caverns. I guess my ego wasn't that bruised. I found this secret note before the spelunking, and while I understood how the arrows worked, I had no idea where that start point was. I jumped into the cavern, jittering from espresso and spicy eel goodness, and quickly found a topaz for Emily. I found another secret note containing more liked gift info, as well as another rabbit's foot. I kept hunting for jade and getting more ore from slimes. And remember how I said I was getting clips for TikTok by this point? Here, this one got 500,000 views.
Oh God, please give me an exit. 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 Oh God. Oh no, I'm panicking. Eat the cheese. Oh, I already have begun to panic. Oh God, wait, I don't, no, God, there's so much. Please stop. I just want to live. I'm so glad I brought cheese. I'm so glad. I'm so glad I brought cheese, man. If I hadn't eaten the cheese there, that would have definitely been it. Oh man, and I'm lactose. I don't even eat cheese in the real world. But God, am I thankful for cheese in this game.
From then on, I've permanently had cheese in my inventory. Literally, at all times. I recycled some things, keeping what I could, finding a fair bit of topaz, but never finding jade. I had super speed, so I got home faster than I anticipated, and used the extra time to smelt. But I panicked for the tiniest of seconds, and that's all it took to miss the bed. I finished that smelting effort in the morning, and cleared out space for my peach tree, which had failed to grow last night. I started getting orange jelly, which I imagine was so tasty. I've been getting a lot of slime as well from trying to get iridium in the cavern, so it seemed the perfect time to dabble with this. I almost forgot to check the TV this morning, but thank goodness I did, because I learned about how pigs need to be let outside to dig. Wish I'd watched that last summer. I stopped by Clint's, wondering about the iridium pickaxe price, and processing more geodes. I got 2 new minerals, yet still didn't get any jade. I gave a mineral to Penny nearby.
Hey Penny, you want like a diamond or something? Thank you, I really love this. I think she loves it. I think that was a love. I think that was a love. Do you love it? Did you love that? You loved it. Yes. Maybe we go after Penny next. Gotta make friends. It's just friends. We're all just friends.
Gunther took my new minerals, and finally, on the 4th of summer, I bought seeds. I found important things I'd clearly missed last summer, like hops for Pam, and red cabbage for the community center. That answered all questions but one about where to find the remaining bundle items. But I was still sweating a bit about that maki roll. I bought a good bit of every type of seed, except specifically the sunflower seeds, as I'd run out of room. I gave Emily a topaz and gifted her a diamond, but I still needed to find a jade to get any credit at all. I planted what persisting seeds I'd bought in the greenhouse, and the rest outdoors, before storing more minerals and heading to bed. Day 145 felt like a good day to go fishing. It also feels like a good time to mention that this is about when I realized I wanted to do a 100-day series on the game, and I thus kept all the footage from here forward. Henceforth, you will now be able to see the top left corner of the game, and I'll show you my face whenever I'm up to shenanigans that warrant it. After the typical farm tasks, featuring a battery and a green slime egg this time, I stored things and went back to Pierre's. I bought a good bit of corn, as that persists through autumn, and gave the battery to Harvey, who decided it wasn't very healthy. Astute, Harvey. It would be unhealthy to eat a battery. I knew you were a smart guy. But fishing, I said. To the ocean I went, leading things off with a lot of confusion about this magnet. Was this supposed to be going in the bait slot and not the tackle slot? Strange. But I did reel in this ornamental fan artifact. The eastern shore didn't seem quite right though, so I took to the eastern side of the pier. I attempted to stack trout soup with Dish of the Sea, and finally realized that specifically, you can have 1 buff from a drink and 1 buff from a food active at a time. That made enough sense to me. Then I made first contact, losing it nearly instantly, but now I knew where to look. I tried and failed again before pulling in this super cucumber. Then I hooked her again, but I lost her again. Then I pulled in another super cucumber, and then...
I'm in the right place.
Ooh, 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 ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ee, ooh, ah, ee, ooh, ha.
I gotta focus. I gotta stop making funky sounds. Ooh, 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 shoo! No, 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 no! Ooh, 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 ooh. No, we're good. We did it. Oh, I was panicking the whole... Could you tell? I was panicking the whole time.
Oh my god. That was the toughest fish catch yet, and I was proud as ever. I sold a few, saved a few that night, including saving our new Crimson Boy before catching some fishy Z's. I started day 146 moving a few things around and reading a letter from Demetrius. He wanted a sample to study of a pufferfish, and while I'd gotten one of these for the community center, I'd still never actually caught one. I figured they must be in the ocean though. The spirits were annoyed today, so fishing was on the docket. I replaced all the remaining non-quality sprinklers with quality ones and received another green slime egg. I also queued up some ancient wine amongst the tasks of the day, deciding as well that I'd saved enough mayo and beginning to sell it again. I took to Clint's, processed some geodes, getting one of these laptops out of a rock again. I took one mineral I got from it and the ornamental fan to Gunther before wondering about the dwarf gadget. As I recalled, we'd been given a recipe for a farm computer, and this was the rare requirement in the crafting recipe. I took it home, made this weird looking thing, and placed it inside. I was worried the computer might not like the rain too much. Upon using, it displayed its analysis of the farm. This was essentially a bunch of observable facts about the state of the farm and its usage, condensed into one report. Useful, but not groundbreaking. I hoped it would at least help save time, which would be important to maximize day efficiency. Speaking of that, here's another clip that got 500,000 on TikTok.
All right, Pierre before he closes. Ooh, that's a tough ask. Are we gonna get there in time? Ooh, I don't think we make it here. Ooh, this is a tough ask. Ooh. Pierre, don't close your shop yet. Wait, Pierre, do not stop selling things, Pierre.
Why am I here? What do I want? What I wanted was melons, apparently. After that close call, I went to the ocean to fish for a pufferfish. I caught this super cucumber, then this super cucumber, and then also this super cucumber. I decided that was enough fishing for today, heading home and planting the melon seeds before more sleepy time. The only mystery on my mind at the moment was the maki, but another mystery would come to light on day 147. The TV lady told us how to make carp surprise, which was one of the more self-aware jokes I'd seen in a game. The recipe was just 4 carp. The luck was good today, so you know what that means. At the cavern, I walked into the first level, immediately received a spicy eel, and found jade 2 seconds later. I almost left then and there, but I decided iridium ore would be nice, so I stayed a bit longer, eventually having to pull myself away from the cavern, lest I miss the opportunity to complete the quest with Emily. It ended today, after all, so I needed to hustle. I gave the jade to Emily at the saloon, who promptly tried to friend-zone me. I'll remember that, Emily. Then, after leaving, I noticed a secret note I'd got in the cavern. If you can read this, come to Secret Woods, please bring maple syrup.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I can't do that. Sure. Yeah. What? Where? What? Okay. I think I have some. So I took what maple syrup I had to the secret woods, but nothing happened. I tried dropping it, I tried drinking it, I tried to give it to these slimes which seemed to be in love, but nothing. I went home confused that night, discovering it had indeed become a quest. Stranger and stranger, this game. The next morning, Emily decided to thank us for the rocks, and probably apologize for using the friend word by giving us this sewing machine. So now we have one of those things we can make clothes out of at home. Maybe she just wanted hers to not get mushroom chunks in it again. I checked the TV before getting on the move, and the live-in program told us about all the summer-only fish, as well as where and what time to find them. I took a screenshot of this because I had a feeling this was going to be important, and then I promptly forgot about all of this. What I hadn't forgotten about, though, was the maple syrup. So I went back to the secret woods. Oh, okay, I guess I just had to... Oh... Isn't this the bear we encountered with the Emily cutscene?
That smell. Come closer.
Okay.
Ah,
Ah!
it's not every day I get to speak to a human. Looks like you've got a little forest magic in you.
Okay.
Now, about my note. Did you bring the good stuff?
What is happening right now?
Oh, that smell. This is really sweet stuff.
Look at all those teeth. It's my favorite sauce. It makes me very happy. Did you want some more? I brought a little extra. Oh, God. Oh, dear. Oh.
You've made a friend today, Watson.
Okay. Okay. I'm not cool with you getting quite that close.
I've got something special I want to show you.
Is it that bit? Okay.
The bear left you with this special knowledge. What special knowledge did you... Salmon and blackberries are now worth 3 times the gold of... Stranger and stranger this game. After gathering the hardwood here, I stopped by the weekly quest board to grab this ectoplasm quest for the wizard. Then the ocean called to me. I needed to find a pufferfish after all. I saw these bubbles in the water. Ooh, ah, ee, ooh, ah, ee, yo, whoa, 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 whoa. Ooh. Okay, got it. I immediately brought this to Demetrius, completed the quests, and checked to see which ones we still had. Back at the farm, I smelted the ore from our previous cavern run, started storing fish for later, and planted and harvested the farm. Today our peach tree had finished growing as well, so we snagged our first other fruit of summer. I'd planted some of the jazz seeds Pierre sold us in the greenhouse, and some of that jazz had matured today. I noticed they had different colors among the different qualities. It made sense to me that the quality of a flower could be dependent on the shade of its petals. Lastly, before bed, I sold the mayo and the no-star cheese I'd saved, as saving these seemed a bit dumb, as we produced these nearly every day. It's to this I owe this big invoice. Now that's a lot of G. Day 149 kicked off with collecting all the metal bars I'd queued up yesterday. The usual farm activities came to pass, including watering these few plants I'd planted in places that wouldn't get watered for some reason. The greenhouse had more jazz to offer, as well as a round of peppers. Demetrius also thanked us for our efforts by providing us with a recipe for Autumn's bounty. With the iridium from our most recent haul, we had enough to order the iridium pickaxe from Clint. I also swung by Pierre's to grab a few more seeds for the farm. Birthday check, I missed Gus, but the luau was soon. I replanted, did some farm clearing, took note that all the fruit trees had grown up, and started making plans. I was part of the way through the master money moves I was working on in my brain when I noticed the jazz situation was far worse than I'd realized. Jazz had both colors and qualities. Its stacking mechanics were a literal nightmare for a game like this. After acknowledging I'd completely misread this, I gave them their own chest fridge. That's a fridge, remember. I also made a designated fruit fridge, as I expected to be pulling from this for jelly and wine production. I also started putting away all the farm decorations in a chest, as I didn't really care about the aesthetics of the farm at this point. And I started the beginnings of my strangest farm organization yet. I decided to use my bedroom as a makeshift storage area, at least until I could order a shed. I doubled down on this goobery idea on day 150, deciding unknowingly to make the halfway point of this journey remarkable in a unique way. I harvested the farm, including ancient fruit, which I stored at the urgent recommendation of the comments to make seeds out of via the seed maker soon. It was a good idea, to be fair, and I was in the habit of storing things anyway. I took care of the lovely animals, trees, greenhouse, and the birds, even replanting some before heading to Robin's. I wanted to get a shed so this bedroom extravaganza could be as brief as possible. I first tried moving the greenhouse, which I learned would indeed work, before committing and ordering the aforementioned shed. Then it was back to my goobtastic storage solution. I will admit I was being rather thorough. This maybe just wasn't the place. Color-coded chests began to multiply in my bedroom, and I was enabling that. Even afterwards, while scripting this video, I still feel the judgment right now. The comments had recommended a good idea for home organization though, as having the bed by the door would likely save me some troubles in the future. The rest of this day really was just piling as much into chests in my sleep room as I could, even moving some of the crafting stations into the living room. Day 151 has to be one of the most tragic days of the run. It started with Jody once again ordering too much fertilizer. How does she keep making this mistake? Then, one of our 4 fruit trees wasn't a fruit tree anymore. It was a coal tree. I later learned this has to do with lightning? Brutal. But today was the day of the luau, so I ran back inside to my growing hoard and grabbed a gold star hot pepper. I then got distracted just long enough in my hoard. I left my farm at what I thought was on time, only to realize I had to make it to the beach by 2 p.m., not just off my farm. I ran my little heart out, crossing the threshold just a mere second after 2 p.m. struck. But the beach was barren. There was no luau to be found. This made me incredibly sad. I also noticed during my brief distraction, I had even put the hot pepper away. The weight of my goobering weighed heavily on my shoulder that day, and I turned in early, ending the episode then and there. After another brief break from recording, I was back on the farm once again, selling things, taking care of the animals, and grabbing some more speed grow I'd never used from bone mills I rarely used. I planted some sunflowers, testing out the last of the summer crops, and relearning all the wild organization attempts I'd been making. This tree was still making and coal, and I began to worry we wouldn't get one of the 2 fall fruits that we needed for the community center. Socials update, not too shabby. Speaking of those, Alex's birthday was tomorrow. I swung by the blacksmiths to pick up our first iridium tool, then started throwing flowers at people again. Hey, you want a flower? Wait. This is a really nice gift. Thank you. You're welcome. What can I say? I'm got it for you and nobody else. I was thinking of you when I picked it and not the other. The grass is so loud. Wasn't thinking of anybody else but you, then not the other people that I gave it to. The cart lady had a couple of useful looking seeds, so I snagged them before heading home, and planted the coffee seed in the crock pot. I watered it in the rest, cleared up the farm, and continued to fret over my Santa's naughty list tree. I should mention that around this time is when I started posting the funny clips of this journey to TikTok, and comments over there also began to impact this journey. On day 153, I awoke to a brand new shed. I was rather astounded by how much room was inside. So much room for activities. In the interest of such activities, I sold some goods, made some kegs with oak resin I'd been saving, and took care of the rest of the things on the farm. Our plant-based farm area had made something new as well. Have you produced things? You have. What are those the red cabbages? Is that what I'm looking at? I'm sorry, should I not have been looking at the red cabbages? I apologize. I will look at something else. I kept aggressively storing instead of selling things, still unsure on what I would need later. Then I went to Robin's to order another shed. I put it in this spot, still going on the mindset that this was all temporary and a massive rework was coming. I also stopped by the community center on the way home to drop off a red cabbage to the dye bundle. This earned us a seed maker, which I was excited to use on ancient fruit as soon as possible. On the way home, I interrupted Alex's workout to give him a flower for his birthday, then jogged home to put down this seed maker. It occurred to me as I went to replant that I'd spent so much money on the future that now I didn't really have the money to buy more summer seeds. Questionable decisions. But at least I had a greenhouse and some pretty solid long-term plans. Because I feel like having a moneymaker shed of just like a bunch of fruit and vegetables that we just preserve or ferment. Just churning them. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's money. I feel like that's the big money. So we're gonna do that. I started putting all our kegs in this shed as they were made or when they were finished processing and tucked away for sleep. Truffle oil and ancient wine did some heavy lifting that night. A 25,000 G bag felt quite nice. I was relieved to find the next morning that our coal tree was now no longer a coal tree. I assumed that meant we were back on the nice list as I took care of the farm chores. Linus sent us a fish in the mail. I really need to tell him to stop doing that. My mailbox is starting to smell. After some sales, a new recipe from the Queen of Sauce, and digging up this prehistoric tool, I remember to check the luck for the day. This is rare. The spirits feel absolutely neutral today. What? No. What? No! This is rare. The spirits feel absolutely neutral today. What? Stop. Absolutely neutral? I really wasn't sure what that would mean, but what better way to find out than going to this lovely place? The iridium pickaxe was wonderful, I quickly learned, as it broke every rock in one whack. Well, almost every rock. I noticed that goat cheese sells better than regular cheese, but heals the same. So I planned to sell most of this when I got back. The run itself felt far more lucky than neutral, and I got a fair bit of stone from these large rocks as well. I was in a good mood about this. Ooh! Styling! Ooh! Sauced! You've been sauced upon, my fair children. Good day to you, you foul beasts, but also fair children. Ow! That wasn't very fair, childlike of you. Ooh! Hello, have you for me a gift? But as I went, the luck ran drier and drier. I did find this strange substance mentioned in the wizard's quests. Struggle with rocks, and we... it's not a rock! It's not a rock! Or not rocks. Before finally deciding to head home. And, okay. You know what? Bob is a big deal. You working late, girl. Okay. Overnight, we secured level 10 mining, and I took this perk, which gives twice the geodes. It seemed more logical to get 100% more gems than to make gems 30% more valuable. The next morning, Kent was being a gem of a husband, asking us for some starfruit to give to Jody for their anniversary. Fellas, take notes. The ladies want fruit. I smelted everything I could, realizing storing the coal near the furnaces was a good idea. Our second shed was done, and after taking care of the farm, making an extra oil maker, and selling stuff, I jogged over to Pierre's to help Kent make his wife happy. But to my surprise, Pierre didn't have starfruit seeds. Pondering where I'd seen them before, I went home to do some much-needed cleaning. I spent the whole rest of the day and night relocating everything from my bedroom to this shed right here, turning ancient fruit into seeds during the move. And next morning, I had this lovely shed to show off, and a nice empty bedroom once again. The luck was rather humorous this morning, so the cavern was to be in our future. But I must say, this day didn't feel very lucky. Okay, aside from the cute grandma cookies in my mailbox. I've never had any grandma cookies before, so I'm assuming these are delicious. The farm was cared for, including moving all the kegs and jars into the money shed. Then it was back to the cavern for more shenanigans.
Ooh, a dinosaur egg. Ooh. Hello. Oh, you getting all maneuvery on me now. Listen, that's not acceptable. Prismatic shard? Okay, excuse me? Oh my god. The most iridium in one place that I have ever seen in my entire... And no way that we got a hole out of it. There's no way. And we're getting like 3 for... I don't even care. Why care? I didn't know that they hit that hard.
But aside from all this glory, I hadn't been paying attention to an important detail. When you jump down a hole, you take damage in relation to how far you fall. And I was quite low here, planning to place a cheeky bomb. But instead, all I had was an oopsie. And remember that goat cheese I said I was gonna sell? Not to mention this artifact here. It was a tough break losing that many items, but I needed that cheese back. That was a lot of money. So I headed to Marlin to ask for the cheese, noticing only after I clicked how expensive the return request was. Just to illustrate how blinded by rage I was, I went to water the greenhouse with 0 energy and immediately overexhausted myself. I smelted these ores really slowly and slept angrily. I woke up to the queen yammering about hash browns before checking my mailbox for tens of thousands of G worth of goat cheese crammed in there. Hopefully it didn't smell too much like fish. I immediately sold almost all of the smelly cheese to financially recover from my bad decisions before collecting all these lovely new metal bars. Some comments recommended I try this. What does this do? Oh shit, it really did go into the incubator. I thought that might have been a troll. It wasn't. What's that gonna do? Don't tell me it's gonna incubate it. I also did this, which the comments subsequently hated. I had a feeling it was rare, but I was hoping turning it in would give me some information. But no, it didn't. It was cavern time once again, and I redeemed myself by finding another shard, as well as some farm totems in this chest. I learned about some very terrifying bats on level 60. And a bit later, actually really late into this run, I jumped into this hole and found...
Levels, dude. We gotta go. We gotta leave. Never mind. Never mind. Whoa. Nope. Nope. We're not ready.
There was exactly a 0% chance I was going to remove all of those in time, but in my dreams, I did get the cheese money back. Today was the day. The TV said I was a lucky duck once again, so I was going back. But this time, I had bombs. I ignored all my other responsibilities, crafted as many bombs as I could, cleared my inventory of everything except bombs, bomb-making spares, and stairs, and I went back to the cavern once again. I was sure this time I'd pull this thing off. Okay, actually Pam wasn't ready yet, so I did some of the farm stuff. Then I was off, snacking on an early eel and bombing for ladders or holes incessantly. I constantly mined ores on the way down to make more bombs out of, and I constantly ate cheese anytime my health was below half to prevent negligent oopsie-poopsies from occurring. I mined these big rocks too, as they provided significant returns for stone staircases. This chest on level 16 gave us life elixirs, 3 of them. Tasty. By 1:20 p.m., I had already reached level 25, so things were looking good. More bombs, and then level 39 hit us with another one of these. I slew these prehistoric boys as fast as I could and kept moving, but we'd lost a lot of time. After more explosions, I was caught in a dance with many ghosts, had a little close call, had another eely snack, and made more bombs from the ores I'd just gathered. The fighting was nearly too much on level 55, but a staircase saved the day. A few ladders later, I found myself on level 71. To make more of those bombs, what do we need? We need iron ore. Do you see what I see? I see bombs. You can see I was singularly focused. I used that iron and blew up more rocks, found more ladders and holes, even some tasty iridium, before arriving at level 80. The sheer amount of bats in this room immediately terrified me, and I ran for my very life. I attempted to staircase out, doing so successfully, but wasting one like a noob. By midnight, I'd reached level 84, and started leaning heavily on staircases. At level 91, it was 1 AM, and I needed to clutch this. I checked my inventory, and I had enough stone now for 9 more staircases. That math was marvelous, so I plunged via staircase 8 more levels, and at 1:40 PM, I emerged into a strange room with a strange man in it. In exchange for all our efforts, struggle, and strife, Mr. Chi complimented us and gave us a reward. Now, go over to that table and drink this special milk I've prepared for you. No, special milk? No, what the heck? No, I don't know. Wait, okay, this is not what I came down to. Don't drink special milk because some random dude. It's called iridium snake milk. One healthy swig of that and you'll become even more powerful. Can we get a rain check on... The taste is awful and the texture is even worse. Yeah, it sounds like it would be. But your health is permanently increased by 25. Okay. Is that the end of the cutscene? Good luck out there, kid. Is that the story? Is that it? And that was it. This is what we had survived 100 levels for. What a day. My secret note collection was filling up, and my pockets were full of 69 iridium ore on day 159. Nice. I smelted all of that and more, harvesting and storing crops, and testing out corn on the oil maker per the comments. Among the farm chores, I noted some very serious concern that this dinosaur egg would hatch, and I'd find my coop birds all slain by a chonky fire breather. I decided the only way to avoid this was to make another coop. I turned more ancient fruits into seeds, got some wood in the mail from Robin, and ordered the iridium watering can from Clint. Birthday check. Token science guy wants some gold for a quest too. Kent also still wanted starfruit, and I'd reckoned I'd seen that at Sandy's shop. I'm not really sure how this next part happened. I stood there, literally read aloud that these plants take 13 days to mature. Oh, they take 13 days to mature. Looked at the date being the 19th of summer, and said, we got enough time. And so I bought a bunch of starfruit seeds. Yeah. Back at home, we had a glorious 13 iridium bars. I grabbed this and some gold, finding Demetrius for his birthday pea and quest gold bar. Suddenly, this man was at 9 hearts. How about that? One of the secret notes I'd found looked like this, so I slapped this spot in the train station to find buried treasure. The description suggested it was best sold, but I was officially a hoarder at this point. So what's one more thing in my super special chest? I also found out Abigail loves spicy eels. Clearly, she has good taste. This spurred a gift-giving spree where I gave a bunch of people goat cheese, which went over very well. Then I did the dumbest thing ever. I planted 34 starfruit seeds on my farm, dooming them all to death by season change. Because it takes 13 days and we have 19 days left of summer. And there it is. I had read 19 and decided that meant I had 19 days left of summer. I guess I'm more of a goober than I thought. I decided these fences were lame sauce, so I removed them all from the farm part here so I could make a better design. Late that night, I picked up the last keg and processed more ancient fruit seeds before turning in for sleep. I clearly needed it. 19 days left of summer? On day 19? I decided to store all those ancient seeds in the greenhouse for later, and noticed the hops had produced. Pam would get her ale soon enough. After the harvest, I tossed the keg down from last night, shoving hops in the lot of them to produce pale ale. I started having coal problems again, smelting with the last 2 I had. After the farm's duties, today was the day to try something new. And by new, I mean buying a bouquet and giving it to someone. Which sounds treacherously not new. But this time, it was Alex I was hunting for. That's right, you thought I was just gonna date all the girls? Nope, I'm twice as awful as you thought. After doing a big loop of searching for him, starting at his home, I found him later that day. At his home. He was actually rather adorably bashful about it, then promptly returned to Dude Bra, talking about how hungry he was. Lovely moment we had there, Alex. Though, who am I to judge? Leah had loved goat cheese, so I decided to just spam gift her that, as I would always have plenty, assuming I didn't lose it all in the caverns again. Speaking of mines, I headed there to look for dwarf scroll number 4 again, but on the way, I had a beautiful moment with Maru. We discussed the nebulousness of space, and eventually, she got bashful. Watson, never mind. You sure? This game is art. This game is just magnificent art. Wow, I love this game. Alright, back to the plan. The comments really wanted me to go down a particular path, and I was doing my best to follow it in order and not skip steps. But I'd gotten a pretty clear idea of the steps I was supposed to take long ago, and that I'd just missed Dwarf Scroll number 4 along the way. I'd been recommended to take a hoe to the ground in the fiery portion of the mines, so I started slapping around, trying to do anything really, but it seemed particularly ineffective. I slept confused that night, wondering how I was going to get that scroll. The Queen pulled double duty this morning, teaching us pink cake and telling us Haley loves it. I grabbed our first normal oil and got another rainbow shell from the now very happy Demetrius in the mail. And these were all well and good separate. But then I got a letter about oil. And this letter was not so well and good. And you know what else wasn't all well and good? My poor starfruit seeds, man. I'm so embarrassed about this. Farm tended, I went to Clint to snag our iridium watering can before stopping by Lewis's house to address that letter.
You got the oil? Let me see. It's high quality. Very slick. Great. Thank you. Where are you going with that? What are you about to do with that? Say, you growing any blueberries on your farm? Yes. What are you doing with the oil? I do enjoy a fresh blueberry. Why do you enjoy oil?
Perhaps it was better to leave that alone, but I'm just kind of worried about Marnie's pH.
Lewis wants truffle oil. He won't explain what it's for. Maybe it's none of your business.
I drove those strange thoughts from my mind with prospects for an iridium hoe. I grabbed the bars and swung by Pierre's to sell cheese to have enough money. On my way to Clint, I reckoned with this new reality I was now in.
Ooh, hey, boyfriend. You want some cheese?
Wow, that's crazy. I've never had a boyfriend before. Okay, I gave Clint my hoe, the tool, for him to upgrade to iridium. I took the watering can we'd gotten from him earlier and tested out this new 6x3 watering zone in the greenhouse. Pretty snazzy. I also started untilling this whole area because I didn't know what kind of fertilizer was in the ground, and I wanted only the best going forward. Lastly, I finished off this very strange day by stalking Leah home because I thought cutscenes might start at 4 hearts, but I ended up just stalking her and arriving at a locked door. Yeah, that makes sense. We hit 10 hearts with Abigail moments after though, with cheese of course. With that strange day out of the way, I had had time to reflect. I looked at the starfruit, and I looked at the date. Then I looked back at the starfruit, and then back at the date. I began to think I may have made a mistake. I even accidentally destroyed one of them whilst harvesting the farm. Not that it mattered anyway. I harvested the rest of this jazz, being appalled by the sheer amount of space this jazz took up, before getting a bomb from Kent. Kent, did you just send a bomb through the mail? How is this acceptable? I reset the greenhouse ground, stored the jazz, checked on Leah, who was out apparently, and returned to find our pale ales had finished, doing whatever it is they do in the kegs. Fermenting? Now, we got a quest about this in summer year 1. Pam was thirsty, apparently. This seemed more like enabling than anything else, but I quenched her thirst twice over for the delay. I actually just started handing them out to everybody, which in hindsight is really weird and creepy, isn't it? Maru wanted me to tinker with her gadgets, though, so I guess it wasn't too creepy. I even tried to give one to poor Gunther, but alas, I saw this weekly quest for the wizard about ectoplasm, and I was excited, as I'd found some earlier on in a cavern run. On my way home, I talked to Leah, but her door was still locked. When I got home, I searched, but couldn't find that ectoplasm I'd found, and later I learned it was a quest item that degenerated after the quest deadline passes. I listened to the guy on the TV talk about kegs as I fell asleep that night. Pam dropped us a recipe as a thanks for the ale, and I harvested the farm once again on day 163. I also decided to sell everything of specifically silver quality for some quick cash. I spent the morning's chores worrying about my starfruit's date and my fowl's fate, because dinosaurs breathe fire in this game. But it would all have to wait, because the iridium hoe was back in our hands. The comments had explained my previous foolishness to me. I needed to find the soil-esque ground, like this, to hoe in the mines levels. I actually found a surprising number of things lying in the dirt, especially cave carrots. I also encountered my first of whatever this thing is, and immediately worried I had made a mistake by dispatching it. Eventually, I came upon one of these rooms with plenty of dirt and found this green strange doll, which looked oddly familiar, as well as our main objective, the scroll itself. I TP'd home with our prize and slept, reeling in 32,000 G overnight. The next morning I did farmer things, fretting over my same 2 looming concerns, both of which I had caused. I grabbed more pale ale, tossing corn in some kegs this time to see what would happen. I started impulsively giving Pam ale just to get hearts, even if that's questionable. I stopped in Gunther's to drop off the scroll and doll, but he didn't want the doll. We did get this cool Dwarvish translation guide for providing all 4 scrolls, and from then on, we were able to understand Dwarvish. But I also realized in this moment that we'd given him this strange doll already. This was another copy, yet the description was still 3 question marks. I had a theory. But first, it was Willie's day of birth, so I gave him an ale, which was apparently a good move. Okay, now the theory. The text for interacting with this blocked doorway was also 3 question marks. Coincidence? I think not. Perhaps I would need the other dolls. Now immediately fluent in Dwarvish, I wanted to try speaking to the dwarf in the mines. As soon as I walked in though, I slammed into what I would guess was Abigail's 10-heart cutscene. She had plans to go into the mines, but was driven off by this whirlwind of bats. We showed up on the scene to comfort her, and she discussed feeling like she wasn't very brave. We were given choice here between being the protector and being a role model, and I chose the latter. I decided she wanted to grow and become strong and brave more than she wanted to be coddled. This seemed to go well as she subsequently professed her feelings, but sadly, we couldn't respond. This amazingly self-aware game played on that fact so beautifully though.
And I'm just gonna stare at you and not say anything. Cool. You don't have to say anything right now. Jesus.
After that touching scene, here's how the socials were looking. Back on task, I stopped by the dwarf. Just like that, he spoke to us, and we could understand him. More so, the dude has a shop with a rare crow and lots of bomb types. I gave him an ale, which reminded him of home apparently. Then I left, going to do what the comments were dying for me to do. I went to the graveyard, where within, this gravestone, which I couldn't read long ago, had become legible, and its cryptic instructions were rather clear. I needed to take a prismatic shard to Calico Desert, and stand in the middle of those 3 pillars I'd been casually ignoring. I placed our 7th rare crow onto the farm, and grabbed our remaining shard, planning to acquire this new coveted item on the morrow. Day 165 started with the simple things, but became grand. Another recipe was learned thanks to Willie's letter. This cow got out, the little rascal, and I continued to fret over my birds' lives. I'd queued up the iridium axe when I retrieved the hoe, and it too was now ready. I had to make the iridium trash can, which I definitely didn't forget the iridium for and have to go back to get. I went over to Robin's, checking wood requirements, before setting out to chopping. I quickly discovered this axe was blazing fast, and chopped the tree in 2 hits, and the stump in a 3rd, before the tree could even hit the ground. With new speed, I chopped madly, securing the wood and returning to order another shed, putting it in another spot I knew I'd change later. Then it was to the desert, where I hopped out of this bus and strode over to do what needed to be done.
So, excuse me, Pillars 3, if I maybe just did this... okay, I had to just... Yeah, great, whoa. The prismatic shard changes shape before your very eyes. This power is tremendous. You found the galaxy sword. Excuse me?
This sword was rather impressive, having absolutely no cooldown on swinging due to its speed. It, however, did lack the added defense of the lava katana, so I was curious to see which I would like more overall. Sandy got some more business on the way home, as I'd figured that I might have had a bad math day. These would go in the greenhouse, and I even gave him some quality fertilizer. I stored a few more things that night before heading to bed, cuddling my new flashy sword. I spent day 166 being creepy again. After harvesting the farm, and trying to put the waste of space and money out of my mind, I started repeatedly checking Leah's for a cutscene. The door was locked in the morning though, so I kept chopping trees and rechecking the door like a psycho until finally, at 10:30, it opened. We were promptly slammed with a strange cutscene about wood sculpting, and the game gave us a chance to be even more creepy. I decided I had some standards and went with a more thoughtful dialogue option. After suggesting she host an art show in town, the cutscene ended, but I was now outside the house again. I stepped inside and was hit with another cutscene. This one, however, was a bit less innocent, as we'd caught her on a less than kind phone call with her ex. She'd moved away from him to get away from some semi-manipulative behavior, and I supported her decisions. I tried to comfort her, but she gave a rather neutral response, and that was that. I decided to just go back to chopping wood, as all this was just a bit too much for me apparently. The secret woods and some farm mahogany trees were part of the day's bounty before taking care of the farm late and heading off to sleep. I chopped the wrong thing next morning, but who needed that plan anyway? But some big strides were made today. First, the comment suggested this setting for advanced crafting options, which would apparently be important for something called perfection. This is apparently Stardew's word for doing everything in game, and I was so down to try for perfection. I also had a theory that the shed might also be an upgradable building. So after replacing some hay, making 8 more kegs with the resin we'd gotten, and collecting our first pickled corn, ew, what? I guess I'll make more? Anyway, I separated the kegs and jars into separate sheds, then went to Robin's and found the big shed. I moved around a few buildings, still temporarily awful, and ordered a new shed, planning to make a furnace and mining related shed out of this one. I made some fresh mega bombs for a Skull Cavern trip, and I had the usual why not thought of going to the desert. I wanted coal anyway for preserving jars. I noticed my chopping addiction could be fed by these desert trees as well, one of which fell on this thing, and for the first time, I didn't just ignore this as being a game art decoration. This in fact might be something far more important. In other words, yes, it took a literal tree falling on it for me to realize that this was the sand dragon. You win some, you lose some, I suppose. I of course immediately tried to feed it cheese, but no, instead I got this text, which I handily ignored. But thankfully, I reconsidered when I was editing this particular episode. Stay tuned. Back into these treacherous caverns I went, hoeing like I now knew how, and swinging my new sword faster than ever. It occurred to me that the speed of this thing's swings was its defense, and I decided that this was the superior choice between it and the katana. The comments had also informed me that the mummies could be completely removed via bombs after dropping it to the ground. So on day 167, I finally slew my first mummies. I got some coal, ores, and even another strange doll repeat from the dirt before TPing home, thinking I'd gathered enough coal to make heaps of jars. I went to craft 16 new jars with all this coal, and found out the hard way it costs 8 coal per, not 1. Oops. I gave out more saloon gifts and swung by the dwarf shop to see if these dolls had anything to do with him. Strangely, he said they reminded him of home. Interesting. Also, apparently pickled corn has more value than regular corn. That's surprising when I really think about it because pickled corn sounds awful. But roasted hazelnut sounded pretty good, and the Queen of Sauce happily taught us this on the morning of day 168. I'm convinced collecting these recipes is gonna matter, so I'm gonna keep showing that I did get them. A letter in the mail reminded me that the moonlight jellies would be out and about this night, which explained why Robin wasn't here building my shed. Among the day's chores, I noticed that the kegs didn't make corn wine, but instead corn juice. You know, that's a bit of a relief, actually. I learned the hard way that the auto-feed system doesn't feed unless there's hay in the silo in the morning. And I picked up the smelting stuff for the shed later. Off the farm, I waltzed into an Emily cutscene relating to all the fancy rocks we gave her. Everybody was zenning out to their particular special rock, and I was sure I was gonna bust in and break up the vibes.
Now close your eyes and take slow, deep breaths. Focus on your lungs. Visualize the pure energy flowing into your body with every breath.
What's up, everybody? How you guys relaxing? Did I not walk in at that moment? I really thought I was gonna...
Now open your heart to the vibrational frequency of your stone. Do you feel anything?
What's up, everybody? My name's Watson.
No, am I not?
After that surprisingly untarnished moment, I took to another task beset upon me by fervent commenters. I've been freaking out about the Maki roll situation, but apparently Gus might be able to bail me out. While there, I threw gifts at people's faces, then asked him what was for sale.
What are you selling?
As a matter of fact, give me this coffee, thank you. Give me the omelet recipe and pancake and bread and tortilla and pizza and triple shot. This was the beginning of the end for my coffee addiction in this game. Even so, we had the Maki roll recipe, and it wasn't exactly pricey. But I didn't have rice. The unmilled rice I'd grown long ago, I'd sold, so I grabbed the other 2 ingredients and planned to see Pierre tomorrow about buying some rice. That night, I watched these lovely glow squids roll by the shore as summer's warmth faded away once more. It was fall once again in the valley, and the corn didn't care. Everything else did, though. Please don't look at these starfruit. I have no idea what you're talking about. The daily farm chores had altered some, as now we have pomegranate and apple trees producing. Not to mention this addition. Okay. A new baby lizard hatched? Yeah, sure, Chuck. Oh, get this out of the way. My boy, my tiny little, oh no. The pressure to get a new coop was now very high, but thanks to the jellies, Robin was still building the shed. Birthday check to de-stress, Penny's is tomorrow. Pierre sold me some rice, as well as some grape and cranberry seeds for the greenhouse. And finally, some pumpkins and bok choy for the farm. Back at that farm, I used the kitchen to cook up a Maki roll, and enjoyed this forgotten oboe solo. After replanting, I betook myself to the glorious community center to drop off both the pomegranate to the enchanter's bundle and the Maki roll to the chef's bundle, earning 5 gold bars and 3 pink cakes. All that remained was an apple a day for 2 more days. How about that? I headhunted Haley immediately afterwards because I knew she loved pink cake, and I'd just gotten some from the forest magic, which I'm sure added to the flavor. She said it was her favorite thing, and I began to wonder if this favorite thing was a legitimate mechanic in the game. But that was enough of the town for today. I went back home, removed the corn I'd constantly forget to water anyway, and decided against expanding the farm since I'd be reworking it in winter. I also managed to harvest our first coffee beans from the pot in the greenhouse late that night, before selling lots of cheese for money, and earned 32,000 G overnight. Our fourth shed was done on day 170, and Caroline gave us another of those recipes. After all the usual plant-related tasks, including grabbing and queuing up more pickled things, I went to Pierre to buy a bunch of pumpkin seeds. Clint had the iridium trash can for us, completing all the upgrades we could buy from him. I gave Penny cheese for her birthday, and checked for the next birthday. Elliot was on deck. I went home and planted all these lovely pumpkins in all the empty spots, sold things, and bought some better fertilizer for later. I also threw more gifts at people's faces this day, before fertilizing the coffee plants and taking care of the rest of the farm chores by night. Day 171 heralded glory as we picked our third apple. Kent sent us a recipe, I destroyed a cactus fruit by accident, and I kept getting the bus driver tipsy. But today was the day for grandeur, and to the community center I went, leaving 3 shiny apples in the fodder bundle, receiving a heater as a reward. But that, ladies and gentlemen, was the last bundle, on the last scroll. In response came our moment of true joy. The Junimos bounced their final goodbyes and departed, leaving us 6 out of 6 stars, and a great looking community center. I mean, seriously, this looks so much better. The clock was even working outside. A true beauty. Drink it in. Okay, we gotta go. I don't want our birds today. I went to Robin to buy a coop because that dinosaur was suspicious. I again threw it down somewhere temporary, handing the moody couple some ale before leaving. And after collecting plenty of corn juice, I went to bed early to see what would come next. Yet overnight, there was no cutscene, no Junimos, nothing, in fact. And the next morning, I began to worry it was just simply done, and that there would be no celebration. I did get this letter from Lewis, however, which seemed to have something to do with the friendship reward for completing the bulletin board scroll. Everyone apparently got gifts overnight, and our hearts went up with everybody. Not by much, but the effect was wide, albeit not deep. But then, upon heading to town, the fanfare I wanted so badly had arrived. Lewis presented us with the Stardew Hero Award for having finished this objective, but no sooner had we received this than Morris showed up to cause problems. Pierre quickly confronted him, and the way this would be resolved was up to me. I decided after much agonizing to choose the reasonable option, in which Pierre gives a motivational speech and successfully starts a boycott against Joja. Morris's plans had been thoroughly thwarted. Morris and his JojaMart cronies were never heard from again. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that's the good ending. I immediately went to see Terminated, bro. Well, that's gone. Sorry, Shane, you're out of a job, I guess. I went home, planning to get more done, when I ran into Gus at our door, and so were we. Okay, sure. He went deep into a decent metaphor about sauce making, in which he basically said he wasn't sure how we would mix with the small town, but that we'd actually made a great addition to this place. And he gave us this really nice mini jukebox, which could play any song from the game's soundtrack. But with that, I began to feel a bit sad. I worried that we'd just finished the big task of Stardew Valley, and that there wouldn't be much more to do but farm, farm, farm. Oh boy, was I wrong. There was yet so much more to do. I planted a few coffee beans in tonight's chores before checking the TV, getting a strange hint towards some strange task about large fields of specific crops. I still have no idea what that was about. Even so, I slept worried that night that we'd peaked as a farmer today. As if the game heard my concerns, a new direction came swiftly on the very next day. I took care of the animals, the greenhouse, and destroyed another crop like a pro before gathering and queuing like any old day. But then, a new opportunity was revealed in this letter from Willie. In it, he told us he'd unlocked the back room to his shop, and this was promising. I recalled he'd mentioned about something like a sea vessel being back there, and the comments had been hinting about some kind of island. This was exciting and was the first of 7 letters in our box this morning, 4 of which were recipes, 1 a gift, and 1 notice from Pierre that he wouldn't be closed on Wednesdays anymore. Good news, good news. I decided to move the seed maker to the storage room, as the things I'd make seeds out of were there anyway. I sold some of the artisan stuff I was storing, figuring I was making these constantly and year-round, and I took all the mining and smelting things to the newest shed. I also had my sights on a new legendary fish from this season, so I ran to the library once again to check where the fall fish would be. The anglerfish has been spotted in fall north of the town where the river flows down from the mountains. This to me meant 2 possible answers, but I wanted to see what Willie was hinting at first. I missed his door not being locked by seconds, but this at least caused me to accidentally give Elliot his birthday gift without realizing it. Hope you feel special, Elliot. The day was running away from me at this point, so I ran home to grab my fishing equipment and returned to test the fish's possible locations. I had 2 theories. North of town, as in the very south portion of the mountain zone, which was north of town, or north of the town, as in the very northernmost portion of the town. I tried the former first, suspecting I could quickly rule it out as being incorrect. And upon arriving, I realized this one didn't look much like a river. The mountain lake here hadn't really turned back into a river yet. So I chose my latter theory and walked back to town, running into a cutscene along the way. It was as simple as us spying on Lewis and Marnie, trying to keep their activities a secret, Lewis more so than Marnie. And for some reason, I emerged to tell them I would keep their secret. And with that, we disappeared back into the ether. Right, fishing. I stood in the most northern spot and far back enough so I could get a max cast. To be honest, I still don't know if the max cast does anything, but I thought it might be required to encounter tough fish. I immediately hooked it once, lost it soon after, and never found it again, fishing a bunch of other things out there instead. But I'd found the right spot, but I stayed in that spot too long. Linus found us that night with all that fish in our pockets, but that was okay, because Clint, who somehow doesn't hate us, sent us an extra gold bar. Sure, this makes sense. We also got a letter from Gus asking for a lobster, and I promptly and repeatedly ignored this quest. Our second coop was done, and after a few minutes, so was the rest of the farm. I went to Marnie's to ask her to move my animals from one coop to another, and found myself in an unexpected cutscene once again. This time, however, it was Shane as the star, and he was out cold. He clearly had too much a soda, and after another bout of depressing Shane stuff, I gave him some cheese, which somehow always makes everything better. I then asked Marnie about why I'd come, and realized she doesn't even do that. So glad I came here. Lay off the soda, Shane. I walked up to my chickens on the farm, clicked on 4 of the 5 of them, and moved them of my own accord. The 5th wouldn't fit for now, not until we'd managed an upgrade on that coop. So I ran to Robin to order the big coop, but I didn't have enough stone. Then I noticed the time, and ran again to Willie's, but found him out here fishing, so I assumed his door was already locked. Torn and losing time, I ran to the mines, hoping to get enough stone for the coop. But that wasn't happening fast enough, so I bailed and decided to try fishing once again. But now it was night, and it didn't seem to be catchable at night according to yesterday's failings. So finally, I decided in my self-inflicted chaos to go to the quarry and mine and chop it dry. I even somehow found this among the gatherings. Excuse the hell out of me. I sold a bunch of things from today's nonsense and turned in at the last second. Take a moment to press subscribe if you made it this far, so you can be informed of more content like this right here coming your way. And once you're done with that, buckle up, because day 175 is where things start going hog wild. First things first, among the daily tasks, I started to forget to feed my chickens in the basic coop, as it didn't have auto feed like the others. I finished this column of coffee in the greenhouse and sold lots of today's harvest. Then it was off to Robin's to order that coop upgrade. This is about when I realized the day was about to go hog wild, so I decided it was time to drink coffee for speed. I hustled to Marnie's, grabbing a new auto grabber for the coop, then hot-footed it to the beach to speak to good old Willie. But Wilson would have to wait because it was time for a Haley cutscene. She'd lost a bracelet on the beach, and I callously said I'd buy her another one because I thought she was the type to enjoy that kind of attitude. But that backfired hard, as it turned out to be an heirloom. Thankfully, the game gave me a chance to redeem myself, as we were permitted to search around, and I actually found it for her rather quickly. Not all heroes wear capes, baby. Then it was off to see Wilford. Pause. Cutscene time. Willington had apparently been experimenting with crabs, and something had gone both very right and very wrong. Gus arrived soon after to buy them, and the 3 of us had to gather them all up. Gus snagged these at a discount for the extra labor, and apparently there would be a crab cake special at the saloon for a little while. But finally, the reason I'd come to the beach was to go through this door. The sea vessel was here, but she was beaten up, and William couldn't fix her because he lacked the supplies. So it was tasked to me to acquire 5 batteries, 200 hardwood, and 5 iridium bars to fix the boat. All right, Wilbur, you're on. I stopped by the saloon to buy some more coffee and now crab cakes because today was going to be a long day. At home, I slapped down the new auto grabber and found that I already had all the batteries, more than half the hardwood, and enough ore to have 2 total iridium bars. I swung by the secret woods for more hardwood, buying sashimi from the cart lady along the way. Pierre had said he wanted some of this, so much that it had become a quest, so I handed it to him, chatting with him about his excitement about Jojo's disappearance. Oh, just you wait, Pierre. I brought Haley another pink cake, who thanked us again about the bracelet. Then I sauntered back over to the saloon to see if the crab cake thing would cause a cutscene. And well, I can't believe it, but another cutscene happened. Though I was surprised to learn it was actually an Elliot cutscene. He told us he was a very dedicated writer and asked us who we should toast the round he bought us to. I tactfully chose Pelican Town, and he quickly got affected by the very strong soda he drank, dancing about and hiccuping, while I laughed and shined. The effect of this soda had somehow made me slower. What a disaster. I went there to get faster, and I became slower. At this point, I remembered Pierre's sashimi was a quest, and marked that one off as done. I jogged home, slowly, chopped down a mahogany tree, and planted a bunch of mahogany and oak trees for later hardwood and oak resin. Just before bed, I realized crab cakes also gave speed, so we could literally buy double speed from Gus every day. Spicy. And just when you thought more things couldn't possibly happen in one day, this happened.
Ooh, what was that?
Pierre had obviously spoken too soon. I woke up that morning determined to get answers about the storm last night, but immediately got hit with distractions. First, the TV told us it was blackberry season, and given all the kegs and bins we now had, how could I pass up on free fruit? Yet, as soon as I stepped outside, distraction number 2 arrived. Jody wanted us to have dinner with her family tonight, and she wanted us to bring a largemouth bass from the mountain lake for her to cook. This sure did change the pace of the day. I started rushing around, but promptly got distracted again in the coop. This was in the auto grabber. Why is this in here? Did you make a dino egg? But you're so small. So my immediate thought was to try this. Can I make dinosaur mayonnaise? I bet that sells for a pretty penny. Then I took care of the rest of the farm, with the greenhouse having reached the point that 2 runs were necessary to harvest due to the inventory size. I was off to the beach after that, but stopped to give the token emo boy some cheese again, which he hated again. I turned in 5 batteries to Willie's boat project and went to the mountains, where I avidly fished for the bass. Just as I was beginning to fully freak out that I wouldn't get a bass in time, we reeled in a largemouth fishy. I went to Jody's, but it was a bit early, so I stopped by Haley's to give her the last pink cake I had, then opened Jody's door at exactly 7 p.m. It was quite a simple affair, really. I gave Jody the fish, then it was implied that we had a tasty dinner. Then we were outside again, which was suspicious. And boom, another cutscene. But I must admit, this one was not so simple. Jody was making popcorn for her husband, who ran in freaking out, the sound reminding him of the trenches of war he was in before having returned home. I was fascinated by the artful, but also respectful take on actual PTSD this game had just laid out, and I was likewise pleased when we were given a de-escalating answer choice that resulted in a wholesome outcome.
This game is just art.
It really is art. It really is. Having had far more than the dinner I bargained for, I left another of this town's marriages to sort itself out. I decided instead chugging coffee and hunting blackberries by nightfall was the move. In fact, I cleared and chopped a lot of the area as well. And at the end, after a secret was run, I barely made it home in time, with more than 50 blackberries in my pockets. That night, thanks to the bass rush, we snagged level 9 fishing, earning 2 curious recipes for the magnet and seafoam pudding. JoJo's lightning had all but left my mind thanks to the chaos of yesterday, and today was no better. Leah started us off with a weird one, standing at our door to give us the essence of the wood she'd been beating earlier. It was entitled, How I Feel About Watson. Considering this looked like pure natural chaos encapsulated in a sculpture, that kinda made sense. Sure, okay, thanks, Leah. Mail time. Pam sent us a recipe, and Lewis reminded us about the upcoming Stardew Valley fair. That dino egg I put in the mail machine made dinosaur mayonnaise. Okay, that makes sense, kinda, but also, what?
It's thick and creamy with a vivid green hue. It smells like grass and leather. Dude, I bet that's great.
I planted a fair bit of pumpkins, checked on Robin who wasn't home, chopped wood, whiffed again on Sebastian with the gift of ale, then went to try fishing for that fall legendary fish again.
This was the location that was successful. Okay. This is the only place I actually got. Okay. This is the only place that I got it to ship. Okay.
After some patience, we hooked her again and landed it, albeit partially off screen. Still, we had finally caught the angler. There was but one legendary fish left, according to the lost book, and it was all the way in spring. I gathered more... Oh, hello.
Hello? Well. Hello. Hello, hello. Hello. Well, hello. Hello.
I guess you get the picture. I did a Secret Woods run for more hardwood, and with my fishing still boosted from the angler prep, I took advantage of these bubbles in this lake. But I just got a lot of carp, and the occasional wood skip that I would make room for, then forget to grab. Once the bubbles were gone, I ran home, only just noticing the time, and watering what I could over in the greenhouse before having to run to bed. The dino mayo did indeed sell for a pretty penny. The Queen of Sauce taught us another meal today, and I tried one of her more odd recipes she'd given us before. Woohoo carp surprise! Not to mention a little algae soup. I managed to cook something a little slimy, and something bland and oily. You could say I'm a master chef. I moved the 5th chicken to this coop, now big, but left the ducks for later. I still wouldn't be able to fit them all in there without upgrading it again. So after finding this totem, I went to Robin's to inquire about such an upgrade, but I didn't have enough cash or stone. I tried the whole drinking coffee to hustle thing again, and this would soon become a full-on coffee speed boost addiction. I started by selling things to Pierre to reach the cash requirement, then ran to the farm to grab 75 stone I remembered I'd left in the greenhouse due to harvesting and inventory issues. Then I hit up the quarry, which was rather thin, before heading down to the frozen level to get more stone and hopefully call an iron so I could make bombs to do this faster. I also found this frozen volunteer, which the comments had told me Sebastian liked, because people really wanted me to date Sebastian. Imagine that. After getting enough stone, I went back to Robin's, attempting to give Emo Boy his sad rock on the way. But I'd already given him 2 gifts this week. The misunderstood man would just have to wait. I ordered that deluxe coupe upgrade, then stopped in the saloon again to spend the rest of my money on speed boosting coffee and crab cakes. It was time to become a permanent zoomer. I zoomed to the secret woods, did the usual, and upon leaving, stumbled into a Leah cutscene in which she couldn't reach a particular fruit in this tree. And despite all the human intelligence we've evolved over centuries of innovation, she just stood there waggling her arm at it. I know she ain't that stupid. She wanted somebody to help her. You ain't fooling nobody, Leah. Even so, after we hoisted her in the air, she jumped on our head, backhandedly said we look weak, and shared the fruit with us. Then she was sweet, but also called us a friend. I'm officially getting mixed signals here. Back at home, I sold the stuff I'd cooked, realizing I was just gonna eat cheese anyway. I took stock of the special stuff box, and decided to put the fishing rod away for a while, as the final legendary was in spring. I also planted our first rare seed in the spot where I'd accidentally destroyed a cactus, and, upon consideration, destroyed 2 more to plant our other 2 rare seeds there. I moved 3 of the 4 ducks out of what was soon to be the dino coop on day 179, but still couldn't move the last, as it wasn't yet deluxe. The farm tending was slightly different today, as I decided to stop harvesting the greenhouse briefly, so hopefully I could sync all the crops up and harvest them on one day. The mail had a recipe and a piece of cloth in it, and I immediately followed with a hardwood run, as I wanted that boat done soon. This run indeed brought our grand total to 205, which was just enough to fix the boat with. I also did a fair bit of regular wood and blackberry gathering, letting the time get away before realizing I needed to hustle to get to Willie. Double speeded up, I zoomed, and just made it in time. I dropped it off rather unceremoniously, and left, knowing only 3 iridium bars stood between me and wherever that boat was gonna go. I handed Elliot this cheese, earning us a new achievement for having a lot of hearts with a lot of people, and it reminded me to check birthdays. I saw it was Jody, so I gave her cheese. Then I went crazy with gifts to her family and anybody else who was nearby, before finally remembering about the weather event by Joja's Ruins. Ooh! The abandoned Joja Mart? Question mark, question mark, question mark? The missing bundle? Yeah! You can tell I was very excited about this. It had 6 choices to fill 5 slots. A silver quality wine, some dino mayo, a prismatic shard, 5 gold quality ancient fruit, 1 gold quality void salmon, and caviar. And out of 6, I only had any idea how to get 3 of these. Back at home, checking my stores, I found 3 dino eggs. I set up 2 to become mayo, and 1 to incubate. I had recently found that shard in the quarry, so I was covered there. I quickly checked to see if it could be put in a crystallarium, but alas, it wasn't to be. I also had already secured 3 gold ancient fruit, so we were on track to have 5 soon. But I had no idea where to get any quality wine, nor even a clue on the other 2. Well, actually, I had one idea, but we'll get back to that. I decided to try and investigate the silver quality wine concept first, as I already had at least made wine. I had 2 working theories off rip, the first of which being that perhaps I could use silver quality fruit to get silver quality wine. I didn't have a ton of faith in this, but I started my testing there. I'll come back to my other idea soon. That night, we earned level 10 combat, which I guess must have been thanks to those secret wood slimes. I had 2 choices here, and Desperado seemed the clear choice, as I didn't use the special moves often, but I did crit quite often. Fall was in full swing by this point, but the Stardew world building was about to take a dark turn today. Jody sent us a recipe, and our coop had become a deluxe coop, so I moved the last duck out of harm's way. The luck was bad today, so today wasn't the day to go to the cavern to get the last 3 iridium bars. Instead, I went on the trail of this missing bundle. I noticed the reward for its completion had 3 question marks in it, which was rather interesting, considering the doll and blocked cave in the train station mystery I'd been trying to solve. I turned in dino mayo and my only remaining prismatic shard to the bundle, pondering what this could become. Back at the farm, I decided I wanted to separate the coops by animal, so if rabbits existed, that would mean I'd need 4. Right? Stay tuned on that. Look, ducks jump in the water. Adorable. I harvested the star fruit from the greenhouse and planted ancient seeds in its place. I also have been collecting oak resin, having reached 8 of that by now, yet I didn't have any iron to make kegs, having used it all up to make bombs, or having kept it as ore just to make bombs with in the future. I checked the price for a 3rd coop, but I didn't have the stone. I decided to let that wait until I had a luckier day for iridium gathering. But finally, after what was surely not a time-sensitive quest at all, I gave Ken a star fruit to give to Jody for their anniversary. I really came through for them there, didn't I? Upon completing the quest, I looked through what remained, and I noticed the Sand Dragon quest, which I'd also completely forgotten. Remember when I said I'd considered the text of the dragon's bones while editing? It was time to act on my hunch. The text had indicated that the dragon was staring at the desert sun, and that even in death, it wanted to taste. Perhaps its meal was to be the sun, or more derivatively, solar essence. And so perhaps solar essence is the answer. Ha! Ha! Whoa! You place the essence in the dragon's maw. Only then do you notice a note hidden in the eye socket. You've proven yourself, kid. Check out the pile of lumber next to your house, Mr. Chi. I was very proud of myself for this one. And so, of course, I excitedly chopped trees in celebration. I also stopped by Sandy's while here to buy honey to use in crafting these farm totems. Like that. I decided the kegs were important enough to me that I would smelt the iron I had for bars, and that I'd get new iron ore soon in the upcoming Iridium run. I noticed that the Chi quest had updated in our journal, and decided to wait on checking the lumber pile next to our house until tomorrow. I harvested another gold ancient fruit, bringing our total to 4 out of 5, consequently taking another gander at this missing bundle. Really wondering what I was going to do about all this. Remember how I said I had one other theory about one of these items? I was looking at this void salmon, and I'd remembered that Krobus sold void eggs. Perhaps these could be incubated into salmon? It seemed off, but the egg existed, so I jogged to the sewer to test it, only to run head first into that dark turn I mentioned earlier. Who would have imagined a cutscene in the sewer? Stardew built some lore here quickly and intensely with this one. The dwarf and shadow person were arguing, as there had apparently been a war between their peoples, something to do with both of them and lots of territory underground. Both had lost much, the dwarf his family, the shadow person his ancestral home, and eventually the nasty jeers came out, and hands were thrown. I was forced to step in and break up the fight between these two little tykes, before Rasmodius teleported in to tell them off. He name-dropped something called the Elemental Wars, which were apparently long over, and demanded that the two of them make peace for the sake of the humans that live around them. They made peace begrudgingly, and the wizard did some corny sparkles to make a real special promise. Sparkles to make a promise. That's cute, but will it hold in a court of law, Rasmodius? I didn't trust it, but this was well beyond my pay grade. I was here for funky looking eggs, so that's what I got. I also snagged a few nifty recipes before testing this force field again. I went home with my new egg and more knowledge than I'd bargained for. I have to wonder if I can use this incubator to incubate this. Well, guess that means I might need 5 coops then. I picked up the iron, made 8 new kegs, and now we had this many. I tested my other theory about silver wine with these kegs, involving picking items that would make better wines, such as grapes, or other conventionally appreciated wine fruits. I slept a bit restlessly that night, from the rather long day, and the worries about strange wars between strange peoples. The comments made a small hint that the wine answers lay in upgrading my house. I was confused, but willing to play along, so I began to work towards that objective as well. Unfortunately, the hardwood trees hadn't grown much, and I'd just spent our hardwood on Willie's boat, so I suspected it might be a while. I gathered what hay was available on the farm, worrying that we may be in trouble for winter. Thankfully, Marnie gave us an extra 30. I harvested the greenhouse, completely forgetting I'd meant to not harvest it, and did a secret woods run for more hardwood for our future home. I also wanted to explore the Chi quest, which had updated yesterday, but my special things chest was in the way. After moving that, I discovered the club card, which was added to our wallet, which was beginning to look rather full. The bus was down for the night, so I couldn't check where I suspected that club card would be used, but I did see this lobster quest. I half-heartedly ran down to the crab pots, thinking I should trap them, and decided, fine, I'll go get some bugs. I booped some bugs on the antennae, pulling this early game looking haul, before heading back to the beach, baiting the traps, and returning home for sleep. In the morning, I checked my mail, and Pam had sent us a battery. Okay, Pam. I harvested our lovely pumpkins, took care of the farm, including the birds, the coop animals, before heading to the desert to explore the club card's use. I had remembered about a bouncer in Sandy's shop. Don't mind me, Sandy. Hey, bouncer, would you let me through now? Is that a club card? Yes. Well, I guess you made your point. All right, well, what's in here? Let's go find out. What? Is this a casino? I'm in a casino. Indeed, it was a casino. I must say, I'm not a big fan of gambling, but this is all fake video game currencies, so it's all swell here. Chi was here, and he told us that he was the spice of life, including admitting he was the person who'd put the chests in the mines. Do you have a thing for shoes, Mr. Chi? Looking around this tiny little legally questionable establishment, I found 2 tables which were both the same card game, Calico Jack. This was almost a clone of Blackjack with some smaller, player-friendly alterations. One table had an ante of 100 coins, and the other was the big boys table with an ante of 1,000. There was also eerie-looking slots, and this weird guy selling a statue for a cool mill, which I definitely didn't have. Not to mention this extremely strange computer, which tracked everything about us, down to the step. Okay, Chi, this isn't spice. This is a little messed up, my guy. Also, the Oracle Wellwick, the one on the TV that tells us our luck, he was in here losing. That's a bad sign. So why does any of this matter? Why not just leave? Because this shop, which was in Chi coins only, was selling the final rare crow. Dastardly stuff, Chi, dastardly stuff. So the game was afoot then, and I went to this machine to exchange 1000 G to 100 coins. Need I mention there was no reversing this? There was no way to convert one's coins back into G. Dastardly. Or should I say spicy. I hadn't come with very much money, so I was gonna have to make what I'd brought count. I used basic blackjack logic, ask for another card if my total was 14 or less, decline if it was 16 or more, and play it by ear if it was 15. There was no splitting here for you card sharks. Nor were there any other players to count cards of. I did this very simple strategy for a long time, until my 100 coins became 1000 coins. I hoped to speed the process up, so I took my new hard-earned 1000 to the big boys table, and immediately lost it all on the first hand. That hurt, let me tell you. I started up again, but the strat failed twice in a row, and I didn't have any more G to play with. I left, mortified, and further terrified by the fact I would have to return and do this again, as this was the only path I'd found to the last Rarecrow. I had one saving grace, and that was that no in-game time passed whilst playing Calico Jack. Back at the valley, I went to Robin's to check the official home upgrade price before heading to get more hardwood. That night, I returned to the farm and cut down all the fences and trees that weren't oak before sleeping uncomfortably from all that spice of life business. This Stardew Valley day lasted literal hours in real life. The usual farm-type shenanigans occurred in the morning, including moving the lightning rods, and noticing the distinction between wild honey and just honey. We also got a reminder that the Stardew Valley Fair was tomorrow. I also had Robin move around my farm buildings a bunch, hoping to start getting them in a slightly more usable state until winter's big reformation. Then I sold cheese to Pierre for gambling money and took the bus back to this troubling club Chi was maintaining. I noticed in Sandy's shop, though, that Emily had come to visit and had given Sandy a gift. I therefore suspected it might be Sandy's birthday, but I couldn't get to her to give her a gift, so I gave Emily one instead. Then I stepped back into this seedy place, weighing my options. I needed to get 10,000 Chi coins to buy the Rarecrow, and if you're doing the math, that's 100,000 G to buy it outright. Therein, I needed to make some big wins via the gambling system. So I stood here at this table, turned on a TV show on the side, and got through the entire thing whilst using the same strategy as before. Hours went by. I peaked somewhere in the mid to high 1000s, but my luck slowly turned around there and it all bled away rather quickly. Sounds like some spice of life mischief if you ask me. I must admit I was frustrated by this point, so I put on another show and began spinning the slots machine over and over, switching between 10 and 100 on whim basis. I came close to hitting zero several times, and I frequently missed big wins by one of the slots. Rather, it was these cherries keeping me in the game. Strangely, as it was the only item I hadn't actually seen in-game on this list. I eventually reached a point where I'd done better on this than I'd done on Calico Jack. So I decided to stick on it, and after much time, we got this spin. Like magic, our life had finally gotten its spice, and with it, I bought this Rarecrow. I then promptly left and never came back. That was quite enough of that for one lifetime. Sandy and Emily had moved, so I gave Sandy this gift, finding out my birthday hunch was correct. I then returned home, absolutely exhausted in the real world, and chopped down these oak trees for more farm room to potentially move buildings to. I placed down the final Rarecrow, received absolutely zero fanfare, and at this point, was rather over it. So I decided to cannibalize some sprinklers from the farm where they were only watering corn to test and see if they worked in the greenhouse. I also grabbed some jelly, put torches down in front of some farm buildings, and turned in early, as real Watson also needed sleep. On day 184, I was recharged and ready to go, harvesting more pumpkins and learning the glorious fact that sprinklers did work in the greenhouse. I watered the area the sprinklers hadn't been placed for yet, making plans for the day before being reminded in the mail that today was the fair. We also got some food and this letter, which was the fanfare for getting all 8 Rarecrows. Man, I could have used that yesterday. The Rarecrow Society had congratulated our efforts by giving us the recipe to craft a deluxe scarecrow, which was twice as effective as a regular scarecrow. Apparently it had double the radius, which I learned was about 16 tiles. That's right, I just learned the effective radius of a scarecrow on fall 16th of year 2. I'd also just learned that these spaces are called tiles. You know, that makes sense. I was excited to use these deluxe crows, but they had iridium ore in their recipe, so they would have to wait. It was fair time, so I grabbed a bunch of stuff from the special chest and went to the fair. There was essentially nothing new about this at all, except Kent's dialogue. I won again, and spent the tokens on what was available, wagering the change on all orange, and it came up green. Hey, at least I had some new flowers and a hat I'd never wear again. Overnight, though, a strange sound played.
I'm sorry? My skin is crawling. Would you like to share with the class? An explosion was heard in the night?
An explosion sounds like that, apparently. I searched around finding this thing, which seemed to be a meteor. That actually adds up because iridium comes from meteors in the real world, so I thought this was actually pretty cool. I grabbed some more sprinklers to add to the greenhouse, setting up everything except the bottom row. I was also just kind of letting the barn animals go everywhere, as I still wanted the pig to dig up truffles. In fact, the animal products had built up a bit from chi-related delays. So I started processing what I could, including this silver dino egg. I stored what I could, gave Harvey a blackberry, and took this weekly quest from Robin to collect 1,000 stone. I checked those traps for lobster, but I think I was too late, because it was all just trash. I sold some ocean forage to Willie, and bought bait directly from him to rebait the traps with. I chopped a lot of wood, including secret wood that day, before catching more sleep and having another strange event overnight. Firstly, this happened.
Excuse me?
Yeah, okay, sure. Then a UFO flew.
What's happening to me? What is going on?
Sure. Okay. Because of that, I started the day frantic, and it never stopped. My concern was that this was the creepy version of the fairy that accelerated plant growth, and that it had arrived to accelerate animal growth, namely, the dinosaur I had in this coop. But instead of finding an evolved big boy in here, I found this void egg. Okay, so now I had one incubating and one in my hand. What to do? I decided to hold on to it, unsure of how to proceed. I also chopped down some newly grown mahogany trees, thinking perhaps now we had enough hardwood for the house upgrade. I was of course very wrong. The house upgrade costs 150 wood, not 50. Even so, I went on to make some daring plans, grabbing bombs on the way off the farm. Just before starting those plans, I saw it was Marnie's birthday, and turned to hand her a gift. Then the plans began. I first sold a bunch of crops directly to Pierre, scoring the millionaire achievement, and securing enough gold for the house upgrade. I also gave him some fried calamari I'd received in the mail, which was his all-time favorite, apparently. Favorite item, huh? I went directly to Robin's with the money and 50 hardwood, only to learn of my error. She didn't sell hardwood, so I switched to making our next coop. Yet, we lacked the stone, so I frantically went to the mines to farm this out fast. I ran back with extra coal and gems for my trouble, and ordered the coop. But the last stage of my plan was now in jeopardy. My intention was to go to Skull Cavern and mine the iridium needed as well, but the time was now rather late. But I pulled a little maneuver here, and made it just in time. The objective was simple. I needed 9 iridium ore to finish this guy's boat. Yet sadly, luck was not on our side, and never found any iridium at all until 11:40 p.m. So despite all the scrambling, I'd only successfully ordered a coop. On day 187, I harvested our 5th ancient fruit of gold quality. I also had a new coal tree from the most recent storm's lightning. The oak trees had started to grow, and Marnie sent us another recipe. And then Pam sent this absolutely absurd letter. The woman wanted a battery. She literally sent us a battery through the mail 5 days ago. Okay, Pam, lay off the sauce, hun. I gave her back her battery, completing this completely reasonable completing this completely reasonable quest line before returning to Joja to fill the 3rd of 5 slots for this bundle. Then it was back to the cavern, as I still needed 8 more iridium ore for Big Willie. This time, I gave Big Purple Slimes high priority, as I knew they could and would drop iridium ore. And I actually got our first 4 early on this way. I also found another sad rock. Speaking of rocks, I was also attempting to pick up many rocks for Robin's stone quest, bombing rocks willy-nilly. And speaking of bombing things, I started stacking up mummies to farm out cloth and solar essence. And while we're at it, here's some proof of skill I'd finally acquired after 187 days of strife. Not a single one of these things touched me. This crab brought iridium ore totals to 5 of 8. Then I aggressively bombed this level in particular to finish things off. I stayed long enough to use the rest of my bombs for stone, snagging a little extra iridium for the road. I TP'd home, because who needs a road, and prioritized starting the smelting of these ingots over making it to bed, so we would have them in the morning for completing the boat. Despite passing out in a shed, Marlin found us in the mud at 3 a.m. I suspect Linus had something to do with that. Worse still, the iridium hadn't even finished smelting. I did notice, however, that strawberry wine was more valuable than other wines, and I'm not sure why. Strawberry wine! Yeah, okay, that makes sense now. I sold it all, queued up more, and started putting tappers on all our new oak trees. The comments also told me I could put sprinklers down on these spots in the greenhouse, and that they would still work, which I can assure you, I would have never guessed. I moved the crop plot to be in range of one of these new 4, so it would get watered as well, so my watering can days could once again be behind me. Little did I know, they very much weren't behind me, but not for any reason I could have possibly known. 1. But now, in theory, the greenhouse was self-sustaining. You know what wasn't self-sustaining? These crab pots. I could not be bothered to check these things at all, and yet again I had mostly trash. But I did officially give Willie 2 + 3 new shiny iridium bars for this anchor. Okay, but why is your anchor made out of a metal more priceless than gold? The boat would apparently repair overnight, so my patience was tested once again. I was quickly distracted, however, by the local angst personified. I really wanted to make the comments happy on this one, despite this man appearing just to be a giant stereotype, so I TP'd home, grabbed the saddest looking rock I could find, and ran back to him. Mission accomplished, folks. Sad boy has sad rock now. With interest in seeing the new fancy boat soon, I took to the mines and spent the entire rest of the day mining stone, fully clearing 5 low levels of the mines and getting all of this. Overnight, Robin pulled double duty again, hammering away, and the strawberry wine sold very well. Look at all that cash. Day 189 was a little weird, I'll admit. I didn't have time to record a whole new episode, but I wanted to see what was up with the boat. So I just went straight to Willie's to see if there would be a cutscene or something, but instead it was just now a room with a machine costing 1000 G. And this looked like a whole new can of worms I couldn't open without more time, so I called it, effectively resetting this day due to time constraints. On the real day 189, I checked the greenhouse to confirm, and the sprinklers were performing flawlessly. Well, almost. They actually don't water the crop pot. Well, that's fine. Today, after these 2 letters, I went to Calico Desert instead. Today was the last day for Robin's Gather 1,000 Stone quest, and I wanted to clear it. I bombed very aggressively, doing my best to keep up with the time, with some rooms being more effective than others. But eventually, late in the day, we hit 1,000 stone gathered. I returned home, made as many bombs as possible to the proceeds, sold stuff, and smelted our plunder. And I noticed that right before winter, we'd just run out of hay. Good thing Marnie had sent us 30 in the mail. That would give us 1 day to sort things out. The new coop was done as well, not to mention this thing, which had hatched. Void egg makes void chicken. Sure. I'd begun to pick up all the animal product processing machines, congregating them here, with plans to make a dedicated animal product processing shed. Robin also sent us a letter in reference to our resource rush completion, giving us a recipe for a new chest. I must admit, I was excited we could make a chest out of stone instead of wood, but I was a bit disappointed it didn't have any extra inventory slots or something else special. Still, it looked cool. I harvested the farm, moved the autograbbers all closer to the doors of the farm buildings, and I noticed that our void chick had red eyes. Nice, okay, yeah, I think I'll just put this other egg over here for a while. I kept adding tappers to oak trees as I could, queued up animal products in this new area, sold a fair chunk of things we'd saved, and went to Marnie's to buy more hay for our hungry animals. But she wasn't home. Sorry, animals. I spoke to Robin instead, ordering a new shed for the animal processing station, then swung by the saloon for coffee, as the speed boost was just a needed status now. And finally, it was time to see where this new lass could take us. So I bought a ticket, and Willie took us south. Far south, where we docked on an island with a large volcano on it. And like magic, we'd arrived in a new area. On day 190, somehow, a whole new location had just opened up. No wonder this game has such a dedicated following. The developer was clearly dedicated themselves. This area quickly announced itself as being high level, as even something as trite as the worms rewarded multiple omnigeodes and multiple seeds. Immediately after, I encountered a boy in a tree who screeched like a bird and ran away upon contact. Okay, we're in for some wild here. There were giant turtles blocking the paths. Or I guess maybe these are tortoise? The only available option was to go east, so east I went. I encountered this small jungly area, which I impulsively cleared out, discovering the first of what would end up being so important, a golden walnut. There was also quite a bit of fiddlehead ferns in the area, not to mention this strange box, as well as discovering a mummified frog? Okay, what? There was a treehouse with the tree boy in it, but he just stood staring leerily. There was a parrot in here as well, which asked rather effectively for 1 golden walnut. Right, okay. I gave the parrot a walnut, and the parrot's excitement was parroted by the boy. He didn't seem to trust me, but the actual parrot did. At least enough to...
5 nutty stone in Fire Mountain. In Fire Mountain.
Nutty stone, eh? I took that to mean there would be 5 golden walnuts in the volcano. In the volcano. I took that as my cue to go check on the turtle blocking the northern path, as that seemed to be the direction of the volcano, based on our bird's eye view, or should I say parrot's eye view, from before. But before I even got that far, I encountered this little flame guy. I decided to follow, chopping trees along the way, and encountered this broken bridge. I was confused why I couldn't repair this one like the one from the beach long ago, but then noticed 2 things at once. First was this rock to the west, shaking with screams for help behind it. And second, these perches, which were scattered around and looked exactly like the one the parrot in the boy's house had been sitting on. I was probably gonna have to appease parrots with walnuts and have them do everything for me, and this bridge was just one of many. Alright, walnuts it is. This tent was empty, probably something to do with the screaming rock. Further north I went, following the flame once more, rolling right up on a volcano that could just be walked into. Another concept was immediately presented, and I put this one together pretty quickly too. Now, I needed a watering can to progress, and I don't have one. I totally get it. Makes perfect sense. Absolutely computes. I totally see what I'm supposed to do here, but I don't have my watering can. I stepped back out, checking out the west side of the volcano and witnessing this lovely starry night. I also saw this suspicious ring of rocks and found a walnut buried there. I followed that basic pattern twice more on the way back towards the boat, earning 2 more walnuts. And so, without any way to progress further, I sailed home, juggling the processed goods, selling things, storing this strange frog, and heading in for sleep. I picked up my watering can on day 191, as we needed it again after all. We also hatched a new dino, so I began incubation on a 3rd. I sold a lot of things as well, since I was about to have to buy a whole lot of hay. Jody somehow once again ordered too much fertilizer, so I sold it for her. Then it was off to Marnie's to buy some hay. But the brutal truth slapped me in the face. One single piece of hay was 50G. 50G. And I had 22 creatures. And there were 33 days until the end of winter, during which I was going to get absolutely 0 grass, meaning I needed 726 hay. And thus, I spent 36,300G on hay. Ouch. I then went to Gunther to drop off this frog, but he didn't want it. I don't blame you, Gunther. I don't want it either. I figured it must all be self-contained then. Island item, island use. Back to the island I went, and I heard its music for the first time. I'd arrived too late in the day yesterday for it to play. I cleared out more of this jungly area, finding another frog, and I also found a secret path on the way back to the volcano with a walnut at the end. Plus, some of the trees here were mahogany trees, so say hello to an influx of hardwood. Back at the volcano, this time with my can, the water worked a treat. Just across the lava, I ran into new enemies. This one explodes and drops pineapple seeds. I decided to check west at the start with a can, finding 2 more walnuts before returning and using the main doorway. And bam, we were hit with another new mines, this time magmatic. Welcome to floor 1 of the volcano. A walnut popped out of a rock while I was mining the new stuff. Nutty Stone and Fire Mountain, eh? A flame like the one from before attacked me, and I found a new mushroom called a magma cap. This mines was different from either the mines or the caverns, as the way to the next level was not random ladders going downwards, but rather consistent doorways on the far north side of the level. We also found these things, called cinder shards, as well as new copper and iron nodes, all the while traversing the terrain dynamically with our watering can. Gold and iridium were down here as well, but they looked just the same as before. We also started finding these journal scraps, which began to tell the story of a marooned pirate captain who had made a life on this island. In this one, he mentioned the presence of fresh water, food to forage, fertile soil to work, and even his work on making a shelter. This got the gears turning, let me tell you. The creatures here hit rather hard too, but the loot was fruitful in exchange. Also, these things could just come out of the lava and spit at us. Charming. I was surprised, honestly, by how many golden walnuts were just popping out of random places as I tunnel visioned for level 5, hoping to see if there was an elevator system. Just before level 5, though, I encountered this chest, between which and these bombs, we scored 2 more walnuts. Level 5 didn't have an elevator. It was a safe zone, with a place to refill the watering can, and a dwarf with an interesting shop. He had this pair of shoes for a rather pricey 100 cinder shards, but they were even better than the galaxy boots I was still wearing. Target acquired. He also sold bombs, super meals, and 2 recipes which I immediately bought. And finally, while I can't say I found an elevator, I did see this unoccupied parrot stand. But that was that. I had to head home and get sleep. And overnight, we made our hay money back. I sold and stored stuff from the island, took care of the usual farm things, including this lovely hay, and planted a pineapple seed in the greenhouse. Who needs cactus fruit anyway? I also moved all the inactive processing machines into this shed. I ordered the big shed upgrade from Robin for this one, then sailed right back to the island. I had more questions. I started off by giving this parrot 10 walnuts to move the western turtle, then stepped in to clear this area impulsively. And about 3 seconds into that, it clicked that this looked exactly like a cluttered farm. An abandoned one at that. There was also a parrot here who wanted 20 walnuts to repair the sleep hut on said farm. Surely we weren't about to get a vacation home. A second place to sleep? I found a few more walnuts, as well as this bouncing plant. Against my better judgment, I hoed it, gaining our first ginger. I also found this strange door, stating,
Only the greatest walnut hunters may enter here. Your current status, 15 out of 100.
very strange. I went wild with tree chopping, finding a little shack in the west and finding these weird muscle rocks and maroon ship in the south. The ship added up properly with the journal scraps so far. One of the rocks actually had a walnut in it, though I imagine this one might be a bit salty. There was some weird whack-a-mole thing I couldn't win despite trying for a while, with a few cheeky tactics. The southeast of the farm away from farm had this closed doorway here as well. So many new things to do! After clearing the whole farm area, I'd ended up with plenty of hardwood, and even these worms were lucrative, giving straight up artifact troves. But it was late, and I didn't have a sleep hut here just yet. So I went home, picked up the last of the processing stations, and went to sleep, expressing my utter shock at how much more there was in this game. I started the morning thinking about the house upgrade, considering all the hardwood we'd snagged yesterday, and found we had even more that had grown on the farm. Clint sent us a bar, which I sold along with the other things from the trip, and I put down the processing stations in this shed. Oh look, there's Robin. I guess I can't upgrade the house today. After the chores, I began to once again call into question my storage methodology, considering the changing landscape of the farm. I smelted the little copper I had to make more tappers, and tossed some more on oak trees. I hit up the secret woods to ensure I had enough hardwood for the upgrade whenever Robin was ready again. I couldn't really help myself after everything though, and I fled back to the island late that day. First things first, this bird dropped topaz. Sure, why not? I started rather consistently digging up omnigeodes, and started noticing how many different places were going to be asking for walnuts. I'd noticed I'd missed a fair bit of hardwood, but was a bit lost in thought, missing this nut here. This was not a case of the blind squirrel getting the nut, it seems. I was curious rather about that volcano. I went back afterwards, wondering if the levels would be the same, or if they would be random. Upon entering level 1, I had my answer. This level 1 was distinct from the first level 1. I decided these must change on a daily basis, and pushed in, hoping to get some late day loot. Another journal scrap implied that the southeast shore had caves that were great for fishing. There were more walnuts as well, not to mention this sick ring in this chest, returning energy to us upon each slain enemy. Then I found this. You best be below. Dragon. With our new dragon tooth in hand, I pushed onward, running headlong into an angry floating computer. But in exchange, the loot was really quite spicy down here. I began to theorize that perhaps less mining and more running was the best course of action, as I had a feeling we were going up this volcano, not down, hence the lack of ladders. And I really wanted to know what would be at the top. I TP'd back home and slept, still in genuine shock all this was even in the game. In came our first big shed on day 194. I was still trying to cram as many new discoveries as possible into 200 days. And look how much room it has. The Spirit's Eve was tomorrow, apparently. Sounds like a free golden pumpkin to me. I chopped some trees on the way to Robin, but it was early, so I checked the quarry, somehow finding another prismatic shard. I also decided to make this totem with this new dragon's tooth in hand. At Robin's, I ordered the house upgrade, which she said would take 3 days to finish. I also swung by Pierre's to sell some things, and then it was back to the island because my curiosity was running rampant. I tried, but couldn't get to the southeast shore this way, but those journal scraps I'd read that from were being added to the secret notes section here. Noted. More omnigeodes, more ginger, and more nuts for this parrot, and suddenly, we had a bridge. I went for the resources first. That dude behind the rock could wait. I found another journal scrap about walnuts, essentially saying 2 key things. Get your slingshot, and if you see a nut, you can get the nut. Then I helped Rockboy. My iridium pickaxe was surprisingly ineffective, but a bomb got the job done. Introducing Professor Snail. The guy had apparently been behind this rock for weeks, eating mushrooms to survive. He seemed the archaeological type, so I planned on giving all the strange and specific bones and mummified who's its whats I was finding to this guy. I snagged this guy's remaining meals he didn't eat and brought him some dead pieces of things for what was apparently his field office. He talked a lot about wanting bones, so I gave him bones. The layout of his desires was incredibly intuitive. He also had a survey here asking for a report about how many of this type of flower were present on the island. Bro, what? No thank you. I found a few more walnuts instead, finding them in some fun and strange places, but still couldn't figure what was going on with this barred entrance in the volcano. Perhaps this was the answer to the level progression? No, maybe it was a one-way fast exit mechanic? I still wasn't quite sure. I tried giving this box in the jungle some random items, but none were accepted. Finally, I decided to try speaking to the boy in the treehouse again, and this time, we got a cutscene. We first learned that the boy could understand the birds very well, and subsequently were given the chance to ask some questions. I chose the careful versions as I didn't want to set the kid off, but in short, he too had been marooned here, losing his parents in a storm, and his age was unknown, being measured instead in number of walnuts eaten. I'm clearly very young on this island, as I personally have had very few walnuts in my life. Just before we left, we learned his name too. The boy's name was Leo. I of course left him a piece of cheese and started back towards the western shore. We'd found another journal scrap in the volcano that looked like this, and I wanted to see what it was about. But instead of treasure, I found this woman. I'll quickly paraphrase her dialogue here and tell you that she was the pirate captain's wife, and she wanted something to remember her late husband by so she could leave his bones behind comfortably. So she handed us this war memento saying she didn't know how this would help us help her, but that it would help us help her. Okay. Sure. I took this moment, speaking of keepsakes, to finally say goodbye to our sturdy ring. It put in very much work, but now we return this bug meat to the earth. At least so I could fit this thing into my inventory. This gave us an official quest, which also told us the woman's name. Birdie. I looked around a bit to make sure that this X marks the spot had just been about this woman before grabbing more ginger. I struggled for a while to try and interact with this memento, but it simply had no interaction. I TP'd home, baffled once again by the depth of this game, and got more much needed sleep. Day 195 started with some charity from Lewis, before smelting some copper bars for tappers. I made one with a bar I already had, placing it and chopping down the mahogany trees that had matured. And while harvesting the farm, I had a few thoughts. The first of which was confusion, as to why I'd just paid somebody money and supplies to upgrade my house, and they weren't here upgrading my house. And the second of my concerns was this war memento. Perhaps with Kent being the obvious veteran, I could get answers about it from him? And third, this thing was an adult now, and was even creepier than before. Creepy or not, it had already laid 2 void eggs, so I couldn't really complain. The animals also didn't hate us anymore, so that's a plus, but they had disliked us for long enough to not lay big eggs once again, which, as it turned out, I needed them to do. I needed to sell a not big white egg, as well as a void egg for the collections tab. So let's call it a tactical mistreatment and pretend it never happened. I also queued up our first void egg in a mayo machine, expecting the delightful void mayonnaise I'd read about long ago. I'd intended to go to Ginger Island today, but the Halloween event was being set up, so I couldn't actually get to Willy, and I didn't want to use my one island totem. So instead, I doubled down on the farm, collecting preserves, lots of strawberry wine, and remembered I had a bunch of food in my fridges. I subsequently took the food out of these fridges and put them in wooden boxes in a shed instead, and got to thinking that might be the opposite of what I should do. Perhaps I should be storing the food in the fridges instead of all this being out here in chests. It's day 195 and I'm only just now thinking this up. Unparalleled intellect, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, I collected our first void mayonnaise, which...
A thick black paste that smells like burnt hair. Minus 75 energy. What the hell? Why in the world?
Yeah, doesn't that sound tasty? I sold a few things, including mayo and those eggs I mentioned earlier, before heading back to the mining shed to grab more copper. Copper was in fact becoming the big problem. I wanted to make kegs, I wanted to make more tappers to make oak resin to make kegs, and I wanted to make more mayo machine and cheese press. All 4 of those things have copper in their recipes. I decided, considering the necessity of oak resin for big money keg times, that tappers was our best use of copper for now. I queued up melon jelly as well as more strawberry wine before heading over to the Spirits Eve festival. I quickly deduced this was essentially a rerun, so I ran through the maze, grabbed the golden gourd, and skedaddled back home to sell it for whatever it would be worth. I didn't sleep that well though, as I was too busy doing the math on void mayo and hearing extremely strange sounds.
Well, I mean, you know, what?
I was also told to spam click on this moon, which apparently got mad in response? What a game. The game was thoughtful enough to remind me that I'd heard a strange sound last night. Thanks for the reminder, Stardew. I definitely didn't pee myself last night when I heard it or anything. Easily could have forgotten. Robin was smacking our house with a hammer finally, and the queen had taught us a new recipe. But then I found this. I elected to chop down the trees just to show you guys because it legitimately looked like an alien embryo in a glass vat. Stardew truncated that description down to strange capsule. Fair play, that isn't technically wrong. I was able to pick it up, and I truly didn't know what on not Earth I was supposed to do with it. I suspected this could hatch at some point, so I thought maybe leaving it indoors would enable us to catch whatever it was when it did so. I mean, just look at it. It's pulsing like any other processing machine. It's gotta be active. I decided after that to leave my farm entirely for no reason in particular. Today felt like a good day to ask Kent about the war we knew he had literal PTSD about, which somehow ended up being a good thing. The war memento was apparently a picture of a brother in arms he'd lost in the war, and he was grateful for the image. In exchange, he gave us this gourmet tomato salt, and I immediately smelled a goose chase. I also smelled tomatoes, but you know what I mean. I had a feeling this was going to be a trading game, where I'd continue to get items that would suit another villager, until eventually I'd get the thing that Birdie wanted. I guessed this one was for the local passionate chef, Gus, and I was 2 for 2 when he ecstatically traded me a Stardew Valley rose. I quickly decided this was for Evelyn, given that she was the local flower enthusiast, and jogged over to her house. But upon entering, I found myself in an Evelyn cutscene, where I was given some cookies. We were nice about their texture, so she also taught us the recipe as well. I tried to give her the rose in return, but she said it reminded her of Emily. Swing and a miss, I suppose, feeling extra guilty for not knowing my girlfriend well enough. But upon trying to give it to Emily, she said her friend from far away would like it. The emphasis on the rose being a Stardew Valley rose suddenly made more sense as I brought this thing to Sandy in Calico Desert. Sandy accepted happily, giving us an advanced TV remote in exchange. I was 2 for 3, but I had a feeling this one would be George, considering all this TV watching we'd found him doing. I didn't find him in front of his TV though, and went looking for quite a while, losing lots of time, before finally returning and finding him right there in front of the TV. The guy had apparently been a miner in the past and gave us this Arctic shard in exchange. It was described as having otherworldly properties, so I ventured to guess this would be the wizard. On the way to check, I stopped by the saloon to see about getting more crab cakes. But there weren't any. They were long gone, and I was so sad about this. No! My speediness! The wizard accepted the shard without giving us anything in return. I wish I could say that. No, actually he gave us a wriggling worm. What a guy. I decided this one must be for Willie, who gladly took it as bait for a future catfish catch. And in exchange, we received a pirate's locket. Goose chase complete. I'd lost too much time looking for George though, and couldn't go back to the island today. So I went and bought a bunch of coffee, took a daily quest for copper, and went mining for copper for the rest of the day. We did stumble into one of these levels though, and from the skulls, we received 2 of these dark swords. These piqued my interest as they had a starred effect on them called vampiric. I deduced that perhaps we should get to know the wizard more, because maybe weapons could be given magical effects with his help. I also managed to get the Slayer goal for the Duggies. After getting more than enough for the quest, I TP'd home and went to sleep, earning an achievement for upgrading our house to the maximum size. The new house was much bigger than I expected, complete even with what looked like a children's room. I rearranged a bit to accommodate the new walls, and I still hadn't quite pieced together how this upgrade would help with the silver wine. But with winter's beginning came the deconstruction of the plant farm, as even the corn had finally gone away. I saw the fruit trees without leaves for the first time, moved the chicken statue from the dino coop to the bird coop, and noticed the poor birds didn't have a heater. I decided they could handle it and grabbed all my non-omni geodes, plus these troves to bring to Clint's to process. There I completed the copper quest, then broke all these open, getting a large assortment of minerals, a good bit of ores, especially iron, and a few nifty non-mineral items. I earned a crystallarium and farm totems from what I donated, and sold to Clint what Gunther didn't need. By the end, I was only missing 2 more minerals. I went back home after all the bouncing back and forth that had occurred, where I smelted ores, sold saved minerals, and placed down our second crystallarium in the house. I decided also I would give the dwarf this helm I'd gotten, grabbing that Slayer gold reward while I was in the area, which ended up just being another hat I would never ever wear again. I sold Marlin 1 of the dark swords before heading home, grabbing my slingshot for future walnut hunting. It was too late for the island today, but I remembered that the comments had been suggesting I go to the train station ever since I'd completed the community center. Upon doing so, I was met with a cutscene for the wizard discussing this blocked pathway here. For all my theory crafting, it turned out this passage had just been sealed by the wizard so that no unsuspecting individuals would waltz up to his ex-wife's home. She had apparently become green and envious ever since some mistake he'd made, and begun flying around, doing wicked things. The wizard insisted, however, that the seal needed to be broken, as he needed me to go to his ex-wife's house and retrieve some magic ink that she'd taken from him. Once again, Stardew had me in the middle of marital problems. I hadn't yet made the connection about who or what the wizard's wife could be until this happened.
Oh.
This is you? Your wife came and gave me a void egg. I'd been instructed to go to Krobus, who would help me acquire a dark talisman in order to break the wizard's seal. I was sure I was going to need to combine those three question mark dolls to make one, but no, actually. He directed us to this odd cave in the sewer that had a force field. I say had because he removed said force field so we could go prowl around this place to find a dark talisman he apparently dropped in here. This terrible place had green bugs, green water, and green eggs everywhere. At the end of all of this was a chest with a dark talisman inside, which was apparently covered in bug slime, which I had a feeling was also green. Also, why was this in a chest, huh, Krobus? You said you dropped this. You drop a whole chest, buddy? I ran back to the blocked passageway, discovering the talisman had been added to our growing wallet. Using it on the seal caused the seal to just fly away. Of course, it just flew away. Sure, yeah, that makes sense. Inside the pathway was a very small cave with what appeared to be a glyph on the ground. For once, I was unsurprised when this teleported us somewhere else, as otherwise the wizard would have just been lying. We ended up in another green place, with a goblin to go with it, standing guard. We couldn't pass, and that was that. The gears started turning, and the quest text confirmed my hunch as I left. I needed to give that goblin something that goblins like, and we'd learned just what that was by reading the lost books. Instead of running to sleep, I ran to the processing shed to queue up just what we needed: void mayonnaise. It was now day 198, and there was so much to do, and so little time to do it. Marlin found us in the mud, but we didn't lose money. I began to suspect that if I passed out not in my house, but in a farm building, I wouldn't lose money. Gus sent us a gift of bean hot pot, which I incorrectly remembered was Emily's favorite, and planned to give it to her. I grabbed our new void mayo, bringing our running total to 3. I just had to hope that 3 would be enough for the goblin to get out of the way. I started back at the open cave and handed this goblin some void mayo. It quite literally couldn't resist, grabbing it and running away. I ran north, finding this shack, and inside was the wizard's ink, along with a lot of witchy paraphernalia. Oh, also there were 3 shrines. I figured these would require the strange dolls, only to be wrong again, as the first one wanted an offering of a strange bun. In exchange, it would allow monsters to spawn on the farm at night. I couldn't really figure out why I would want this, and I had no idea how I was going to get a strange bun. I found another glyph on the floor of the shack, which, upon activating, brought me to this room. I found this thing, which seemed to be able to change our appearance, as well as this ladder. Climbing it started a cutscene with the wizard, which really disoriented me. How was I here? Still, I gave him the ink, and he in turn spawned a book on this lectern. I assumed this would be the weapon modifications I'd mentioned before, only to once again be very wrong. This book was of course for summoning magical buildings. Magical buildings. At the end of the cutscene, I was in the tower, but next to a hatch in the back. Oh, so the wizard and the witch had a teleportation glyph to get to each other from their homes. Cute! I couldn't go back in the hatch despite having just come from there because he didn't trust me enough. Even after giving him cheese, I still couldn't, which was downright appalling. I checked on these magical buildings, and the first option was a Junimo hut. I actually wasn't wildly surprised by this one, considering the lost book about them liking gems in their huts would otherwise be hot garbage, but I was happy. I really quite liked the idea of having the little nature fuzzballs back in action, though I didn't know what they would actually do. What did catch me by surprise was these obelisks. There were 4 very expensive towers that had the power of the various totems that could be placed on the farm. This was promising. And finally was this unbelievably extravagant golden clock, which kept everything as good as new. My heart was set on them all, and so I knew I needed lots and lots of money. I was especially excited about the obelisks, as those would essentially negate the need for any totems besides farm totems. I stumbled upon the weekly quests board, practically drooling, before noticing a strange quest that would last a whole month rather than a week. Pierre wanted 25 gold star vegetables, and I was pretty sure I already had that stored on my farm, so I accepted and teleported back home to quickly grab them. I somehow had still not learned that I would need to harvest these in the time allotted, and was caught off guard by this yet again when I checked the quest. At this point, I think I might just be a little dumb when it comes to quests. My only chance at success for this, given the season, was the greenhouse, but fortunately, I had persistent vegetables growing in there. I harvested what was available, then ran like the wind to Willie's, hoping to go on an island retreat today as well. I did buy 4 bait for the crab pots, hoping casually to trap a lobster for Gus's quest I'd been ignoring. On Ginger Island, I started by running to the bone guy to give him a mummified frog. There were 4 sets, 2 of which were one-piece sets, and this completed one of them. As a consequence, we earned a walnut from him. I mined out this area in search of bones, gave Leo some cheese, and tried to use the slingshot to retrieve this walnut with no success. I must have misunderstood that as well. I found a new journal scrap on the way to Birdie, confirming my suspicions that the volcano had a top. The dwarves had made a home of this volcano once, and there was a forge at the top of this fire mountain. Buzzing with intrigue, I gave Birdie the keepsake, which Birdie appreciated, bothering even to tell us that it smelled putrid, just like her late husband. Lovely, Birdie. Lovely. I comforted her in her devoutness to her old man, and in exchange for the peace we brought her, she jumped. She also taught us how to make fairy dust, and gave us 5 walnuts. I tried to give her another gift after that was all over, but she wouldn't accept. In fact, she wasn't in the socials tab at all, which I found kind of sad. The comments had pointed out that I'd made a mistake with the previous X marks the spot here, but not how so. On second glance, I realized I was indeed a bit south, so I went a touch north and dug again, this time netting another walnut and some new tackle. I also remembered around this time to grab the walnut from behind a tree I cut up here, and also found one on the west coast over here. According to this weird door, we'd found 34 walnuts so far, which got me wondering how many of them I would or could get from the volcano runs. I learned on the way home that fairy dust worked a lot like the fairy dust fairies had sprinkled on our farm in the playthrough, instantly completing a given product. Back in the valley, I gave Emily the hot pot, which she only liked, much to my dismay. I gave cheese to everyone in the saloon before strolling home, reflecting on the incredible amount of things I got wrong today. Today was a day for some shenanigans, as time was running short. After the usual suspects of the farm, I decided I wanted to try and run through the whole volcano. So I went straight to Willie, harvested, sold from, and rebedded the traps, and bought a ticket to the island once again. I entered the volcano with zero hesitation, zero concerns, and one plan. Run. And run I did, with flames swarming the whole way, but I had the power of cheese and coffee on my side. I stayed fast, and anytime I was hurting, I snacked on a piece of milk mold to stay hardy. I made level 4 by noon, noticing a dragon's tooth, causing a brief deviation from my reckless strategy. I quickly returned to my nonsense once I'd claimed the tooth, reaching the shop where I bought super meals. These, as it turns out, increase speed, which was a really big deal. Now zooming at Gen Z speeds, I refrained from ignoring chests and breakable loot things, netting some interesting things like this curiosity lure. I also took a moment to appreciate the lore with all the big gears and dwarvish constructions and ruins around the levels. At level 9, however, things were a little less ruined. There was a chest on this level with a walnut prize inside, and a fully functioning dwarven trap. I braced myself for even worse on level 10, but there was no level 10. We had reached the caldera, containing 2 walnuts, lots of lava, a chest with a prismatic shard, and this was a wild forge with the capacity to improve weapons via expending a gem as well as a given number of cinder shards. It also had the capacity to fuse 2 rings together. There was a path to the southwest here, which conveniently led to the beginning, and on returning to the top, I encountered lava monkeys. Sure, why not? I wanted to test the forge, but I didn't have enough shards due to all the rushing, so I went backwards through the levels to try to get some. I had to go all the way back to level 6 to get enough, but I did, and returned with enough, even dodging the trap at the end like a pro. I can't say I quite got a hold of the way the forge worked. I understood it partially, including that different gems produced different upgrades, but I didn't understand what those upgrades actually did. Still, I figured the best play would be to use the ever-revered prismatic shard on the galaxy sword. In the end, it gave some sort of effect called the Crusader, which I honestly still don't know the impact of, but it looks cool. I left, heading through this door, which I expected to close behind me, and I was surprised to find it didn't. Would we have access to the forge from now on? I haven't been back since, and I honestly still don't know. But now it was quite late, so I went home, desperately trying to figure out what I had actually done to my sword. And while I sold stuff, I wondered if all the minerals that I'd just sold would have worked in the forge. I began talking as well about this thing the Stardew community seems to call perfection. The idea of doing all that can be done to perfect a playthrough exists mechanically in the game, and it's called perfection apparently. I wasn't sure what all was required to achieve this, but I get this feeling between in-game hints and the comments, I'll find my way there. Feel free to comment below what you think I need to be working on for that. I went to Robin's on the final day of the 200-day run, planning to rearrange the farm like I'd been constantly talking about. I cleared the quarry while I waited for it to open shop before heading in, and learned our house was not fully upgraded. Not only could we make renovations, of which I made every one, but also we could add a cellar for 100,000 G, allowing us to age wine and cheese. So that's how we could get starred wine. I also bought fridges while I was in here, 6 in fact, before getting down to moving the buildings around. After a fair bit of agonizing, I allocated the southeast corner to animal stuff, including the coops, the barn, and the shed with animal product processing machines. I made the northwest corner for plant stuff, including the sheds with kegs and bins, as well as the greenhouse, leaving room south of this for arable land. I made the northeast corner for storage, mining, and our house, and I left plenty of room in the middle for potential magical buildings. I spoke about wanting to improve the ground with things like pathways, but I didn't have any idea how I would do that just yet. I'd also seen something about fruit trees in the greenhouse. Apparently they could just be shoved in the floor. I went and bought one of each sapling, and then slammed trees down in the greenhouse like an absolute animal. I tucked the spring ones in the northwest, the summer ones in the northeast, and the fall trees in the due north of the building. I started putting some final finishing touches on things when I realized I might have made a dangerous mistake. The embryo wasn't in the strange capsule anymore. It was now just a broken capsule. Actually terrifying. I put this broken boy down by the storage shed before revamping the storage in a big way, moving all the animal goods, food, and mining things to their respective locations. I was especially happy with the fridge situation as I now had a separate fruit, vegetable, fungus, forage, and fish fridges. I sold a fair few things for the collections tab at the last minute, some of which I was surprised that I still needed to sell. I never once sold a salmonberry, for example, despite having so many of them. Last but not least, I picked up all the empty chests in the storage shed and emptied my inventory for the first time in a very long time. Sleep came easy that night, but not too easy, as we'd done so much, but there was yet still so much more to see. And as the stars faded in the last moments of day 200, I couldn't help but feel proud of all we'd done so far. The community center was glowing, fully repaired, shared, unlocking future mysteries with Joja's reopening. Our wallet was overflowing with many new items, powers, and tools from Adventures Aplenty. And we discovered a wondrous tropical isle, reaching the Dwarven Forge nestled at its blazing summit. Yet, it still seemed there was much more to do. This mysterious idea of perfection is ever looming over the valley. Subscribe for 300 Days of Stardew Valley, as well as other 100 Days videos coming soon. And while you're down there, show some love to the comments. If you've got hints, notes, suggestions, let me know. And then, check out this video right here I think you'll like.